Hello, everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. Today, I am joined by the one, the only, Daniel Bloodworth at the end there.
Hello. I'm not the only, but yeah.
You're not the only Daniel Bloodworth?
Oh, yeah, they're out there.
There are other Daniel Bloodworths? Can we have like a Daniel Bloodworth convention?
That would be fun.
That would be fun. That would be fun. If your name is Daniel Bloodworth, please reach out. AskEasyAllies@gmail.com. Send in an email. The one, the only, Bradley Ellis.
Hi.
In the middle there.
Hi.
Do you know of any other Bradley Ellises?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty.
There are definitely other Ben Moores.
Yeah.
I get the Ben Moore paint thing all the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Damn.
For ever that's happened.
Can you imagine if you shared like a name with a celebrity? Like your name's John Travolta. It's like, it will haunt you just forever. It's
Yeah.
that's just your life now.
Do you think if your name is John Travolta, like something like that, right, where it's a very specific celebrity name, that anything that actor does, good or bad, like it kind of
Follows you?
Of
Of
where it's like,
course.
oh man, John Travolta, he's really been kind of a jerk lately.
Of course, yes.
It changes people's...
Yeah, people will talk about it.
I
'cause-
mean,
people's
I've
perceptions of
definitely
you.
seen like stuff on Twitter where people with like that share names with like politicians will have like all this angry stuff directed at them because people just like start typing in like whatever Twitter autofills, like that one, that's the guy. Like, no, that's not the guy.
Have you ever been mistweeted at?
I don't think I have.
I feel like I have, like, a very, very, very long time ago. But
Do you remember
not
what they said to
recently.
you?
No, I don't. So now I'm like doubting if it even happened, but I feel like it did. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of games to talk about. Normally, the process for picking Frame Trap games is like before the show, I'll ask and we'll kind of decide on what we want to talk about, what people are passionate about, ups and downs. And this week, it was like we didn't even have to think about it. It was just like, no, these 6 games are happening right now. We've played them. We want to talk about them. We're all excited about them. But before we get into that, I feel like we're in the thick of it. We're in the thick of review season. And as a result... is there a game that you wish you could be playing right now that you're not for work or whatever? Or just because there are so many games? It doesn't even have to be an easy answer.
Yeah. Like new and old? There's just so many games.
No, just one that springs to mind. You're like, oh man, I really love to play that.
Astral Chain I want to play.
Yeah.
I want to get through that, man.
Yeah, I downloaded that and have done nothing with it myself. Yeah.
Like, I'm not very far in Fire Emblem. I haven't had time. So
Same.
I'd like to get back to that someday.
Right. And it's always hard, I think, when you have a lot of stuff to play and it's like something like Fire Emblem. It's like, well, you know, that's gonna take a month.
Yeah, this is a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's gonna take a while.
I started Outer Wilds for Frame Trap for like what 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I like never really got back to it since, but I want to get back to it. That game is crazy.
I feel like I mentioned it on the Trials of Mana stream, but your impressions of Outer Wilds on Frame Trap were great. And then since then, I've seen so many people speak positively about it that, yeah, I'd like to check it out. I saw a review for No Man's Sky Beyond. And it's like, man, I haven't checked in with that game since launch. I don't even know what that game
Probably
is
completely
at
different
this
now,
point. Yeah. But I do know what one game in particular is. I've been playing it. Blood, I think you're farther than me in it. And I like it more than I thought. I thought I would like it, but it's really getting me in surprising ways, and that is Borderlands 3.
Ooh.
So your definition of being farther, I probably am not, but at the same time, because I kind of felt like I wouldn't get as far as I had before tonight, because I did like two or three previous events. So it's like, all right, well, I've seen a lot of this story stuff. I've had to rush through the main path. So like right now, I'm kind of like just taking it easy. It's like side quest to side quest and just kind of bumbling around Pandora right now rather than getting on the ship and taking off.
See, I went to the second planet, and then I went back to Pandora to finish up side quests that I didn't get done before. So yeah, I'm on the second planet. I'm level 12, I think. I'm playing as Flak. I've got a spider ant as a pet.
But the cool thing is that you can swap between those anytime you want.
Right. Yeah, it's very easy to just respec entirely. I mean, you just go over to the machine and you pay your money, and then you do the thing. And I really like as you dump points into a skill tree, you get modifiers for things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's changing your abilities. It's changing, like now my Spider-Man is on fire, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Borderlands 3, I think it's been a long time since Borderlands 2. And I didn't really,
time.
yeah, it's been 2012. So it's been 7 years since Borderlands 2. And I played Borderlands 2 when it came out, and I played all of it, and I really liked it. And I really liked Borderlands 1. But I remember just kind of falling off of it, not really keeping up with the DLC, and not really being that interested in the pre-sequel, what I saw of it. Just didn't really grab me. And so I just kind of got detached from Borderlands. But right before I played Borderlands 3, I played Tales from the Borderlands. And I finished episode 1 of Tales from the Borderlands, and that is fantastic. But Borderlands 3, I think, has been kind of this reckoning moment for me where I'm like, oh, I really like this. Like, there was a reason I played those first 2 games. There's something here that, despite all of the other looter shooters that are out there, this is tangibly different than those in terms of just how fights are structured, because the weapons get so crazy and because you're getting weapons all the time you're getting new weapons. The progression and kind of the moment-to-moment fights feel so different because the weapons are so weird. Like, it's awesome just getting even, only level 12 and getting weapons where it's like, hey, you can switch between these 2 types of damage. You have a sniper rifle that you can flip into a grenade launcher. And you're kind of always making the choice between, what am I comfortable with? What do I like? I like assault rifles versus what do I have? This weird submachine gun,
Right.
That or like this I throw it and it explodes, and so I have to deal with that. I have to remember that I don't have a normal reload, kind of thing. And so it's really fun, and it is also this kind of clarifying moment where it's like, oh yeah, like a lot of other games are really boring with their arsenals. Like so many games, the shotguns feel exactly the same. The assault rifles feel exactly the same.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's kind of crazy is, you have all these other like elemental effects, and you have things that have like rocket underattachments and all of that. But even just the sense of recoil and like speed of a gun in the same class can be like really, really different. Mm-hmm. To where it's like I've got to like pull up a bunch of guns and like just find myself a wall and just like, okay, shoot at the wall for a bit. Or like, okay, do I like this pistol better or that pistol better? Like, how much zoom is like my ideal zoom to where like I can get a nice headshot, but like I don't feel like I can't see anything. And there's a lot of crazy stuff like that. Even like one of the first shields I got in a vending machine, which I think is interesting because in past Borderlands games, like I felt like I rarely ever got anything out of vending machines. And like here, and maybe that'll become the case later on, but here I'm like, look at a vending machine, it's like, oh, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like there's a blue in here. Like I'm gonna grab that. So that and it can like stack like 4 different effects of like what it all does, and like I'm not even sure. Okay, so it's doing this thing to where like charges, it amps up my gun too. Okay, and then but when when I'm full shield, my gun has like a charge shot, and then when my shield's down, like my melee is like 80% stronger, and just like all of these combinations of things.
There's a lot of minutia to it, to where when I was playing Borderlands 3 for the first time, it was very overwhelming at first because not only, I mean, they don't give you everything up front, but pretty quickly you get to a point where it's like, okay, I can have 3 different weapons, which, deciding on what weapons you want and the damage types that they can do is enough on its own. But then sometimes you just have to figure out what your weapon actually does, where it's like, this has a new effect that I've never encountered before. What does it do? And so there's a lot of learning. And then there's obviously like looking at your skill trees. And then you have so many different components to your character. You've got your shield, you've got your grenade, and on top of your weapons already. And so it's a lot to take in. But I think to Borderlands' credit, it's pretty, you get to a point where you kind of get into a flow, and that item level that they have for everything does make it easy to kind of see at a glance, where it's like, oh, okay, I don't even need to look at this. This is so far below.
Yeah, you can see a rarity, you can see an item level, and they also have like an overall item rating
Right.
stat, like in addition to like all the like exact stats of like damage and accuracy and speed and reload, and so it's like you can pretty quickly compare them.
Right. And
on
I
a stat
don't
basis.
I don't envy them with the amount of information that they're dealing, like how to present that, but I think they've done a pretty good job. My only major disappointment right now is, man, that backpack like they don't give you a lot of room up front, and so you have a moment where you're like, oh wait, I'm already full, and you can go and you can kind of you can buy more slots once you get onto the hub ship, but I don't know. I never like dealing with inventory in games outside of, special circumstances, and it feels like a game where you do pick up so much. And yes, you have to make decisions on what is actually worth it, but I don't know. The limitations of the backpack feel a little too severe.
Right.
I think.
Well, and there's just, again, there is so much loot that like you're having to make those decisions before you even really get to know what those decisions are sometimes, because there is so much. I just did a side quest where it's like, all right, I ended up with like, 3 more shields as options, and I'm like, okay, do I want this or do I want to stick with the thing that I've got? And then there was another shield right after that, and I'm like, man, okay. Like, I don't know which of these things I actually prefer right now, because unlike a gun that you can just shoot at a wall, the shield, like, you've got to get into a couple of situations before you get the flow of, like, how that actually affects, a combat encounter.
I do think just getting around the world, they've done a pretty good job where so far the fast travel points have been pretty regular. And
you can fast travel to the vehicle.
And you can that's what I was just going to say, Bloodworth, and you can fast travel to the vehicle. And so as long as you're thinking about it a little bit, as long as you're somewhat aware of it, and even if you're not, I feel like you can pretty much get to where you want to be with little effort.
Yeah.
And that has been really nice. And so it seems like just the way that they've designed it, and what's great is Pandora even, that kind of opening world that you're on, it feels massive. Like there's a lot to that opening world. It's not like this very constrained area that you're in for the first few levels. Like there's a lot going on. There's multiple side quests. There's kind of a big chain of main quests that you do, and they can get away with all of it even at the beginning because I think of how they do the fast travel systems and how quickly they give you the vehicles and all that stuff. And I don't know. There's just a lot of work has gone into making the process of constantly getting loot and completing quests and shooting things as enjoyable as possible while trying to eliminate a lot of arbitrary barriers, I think, which is nice.
Well, the one thing, as I'm kind of going around and just trying to take in all the side quests right now before moving on, is it's given me a little bit of a Jekyll and a Hyde thing. and how these, like, I've got like a strength and a weakness paired up together. And the strength is that I don't feel like I need to go exploring a lot of random places looking for things, because so far as I'm, embarking out on a side quest, I'll find another side quest along the way that's going to lead me like somewhere else. And so like everything is going to take me to these camps on the side of the road. I don't feel like I just need to go and like, all right, let's see what's in this camp, because something is going to take me there anyway. Something's going to take me to that location for a reason. So I don't need to waste a lot of time just like looking for a random treasure chest or something.
There are like claptrap salvage things and audio logs that are a little bit broken off, but once you're kind of in the general area, they do show up on your map. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying is like a lot of that stuff is, if just like on the road, on the side of the road of like when you're going to do something else.
Right.
But where we get into the problem with this is this pet peeve that I've had with Borderlands for a long time, and I can't believe it's still not fixed, is if there are 2 quest givers with dialogue, if you happen to walk over that invisible line, they just cut off the other person, and you never hear what the first person was saying.
Sure. I feel like I've had that happen maybe once or twice. It hasn't been too
It's like
crazy.
I just started the game. I've already had it happen like 3 times.
Wow.
So it's
Okay.
just like, okay.
That is really annoying though, and it's not just a Borderlands problem. I feel like, but yeah, I think that's fair. That is always extremely annoying when that happens.
The other thing, and it's not like I know like a lot of people hate it, and it hasn't bugged me that much in the past. But I am already starting to get like a little tired of some of the humor.
Sure. I actually want to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had Ellie, have me on a quest to go take out some bandit, and it's like, shoot him in the butt, and like, okay, as the bonus objective. And then when you get the bonus objective, you get a pink gun called butt plug, and then you find another one where the chef wants you to harvest cactus for his skag, hot dogs or whatever. But in order to harvest the succulents, you need to get a gun that's called like the Big Suck or something. And like to the whole mission, like you get suck jokes, suck this, suck that. And then like one of the skags is named Butt Muncher. And it's like at some point, like I'm just like starting to roll my eyes and like, okay, I got the joke. Can we move on?
It's a hard thing to disagree with, Bloodworth, and it was a concern that I had going into Borderlands 3, and I saw some reviews that called that out, and I've had kind of a mixed reaction to it so far. There are definitely things that I've encountered where I'm like, that just didn't land for me. Like, that was flat. And I don't necessarily think juvenile humor is bad. It can be done. Like, you can't take life too seriously, And I think that is why I sort of appreciate what Borderlands 3 is doing, where a lot of the side quests that I'm going on, they're always trying to tell a joke. And other games aren't really trying to do the crass humor in-your-face thing in the way that Borderlands is, as aggressively as Borderlands is doing it. And I kind of had this moment where I'm like, man, a lot of quests in these games feel the same. Like, a lot of these games just take themselves so fucking seriously, where it's like, yep, you're the guy that is saving the world. Oh, no, we're in tragedy. Please help me by going and gathering these 10 things. And it's just like, so many games are playing things exactly the same that I am kind of amused and appreciative of the fact that at least, like, Borderlands is trying to do something different.
Yeah.
And I don't think it, like, always works, but there's a quest on the second planet where the quest giver really wants you to get coffee and is freaking out about coffee.
I remember this from the reveal. Yeah.
And then you go to the barista bot and he is, just completely writes you off and he makes you do all these things, and they turn him into a character. And even just like going and getting syringes for Tannis on the ship, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, I'm just going to these points and grabbing these things. But it's like, oh, I'm getting some of that Tannis personality. I remember what she's like now. I'm getting this character a little bit more fleshed out. They're telling a joke here. And so, yeah, it always seems like they're trying to do something. Whether or not it works is okay. But we could talk about it later. But coming off of Astral Chain, one of my biggest disappointments with that game was that a lot of it just felt so empty. And I don't need it to be jokey. I think you can be very serious and be super absorbing, and not every side quest needs to be this emotional thing. I'm not expecting that. But if the objective is just do this thing and there's no other flavor to it and there's nothing there, it doesn't really add much to the world.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a little mixed for me, but I think I'm coming on the side of appreciating it a lot more than I was expecting to.
Yeah, and I think I will too. I think it's probably just like that specific quest line or something. Like, okay, I got it. I got the joke a long time ago.
Right.
Move on to the next story.
Right.
But like the claptrap thing, like I had fun with, like running around getting his antennas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was adorable because then when you complete that quest for Claptrap, he's missing his antenna, you get him the antenna, then you can change what it looks like because you get him all these different antenna options, and it's just a fun little thing.
Yeah, I went with the umbrella.
Nice.
Yeah, I went with the umbrella too. I think the thing, you mentioned kind of just like it beating a dead horse. I think the other thing with Borderlands is sometimes it's just referential, and referential humor can be okay, but sometimes they're just like, oh, they just said the line from that thing, and it's not really remarkable. You're just like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, and so I think that can feel a little shallow as well.
Sure.
One that I did like though, because I do think it's obviously a referential joke, but it doesn't call itself attention to itself too much. It's just right in the tutorial when Claptrap comes up to the gate, and you've got the like robot camera arm that comes out and starts talking to him like it's the thing from Return of the Jedi. And it's like, this is clearly like the exact same thing, but they don't really do a whole lot to call it out or use any like specific lines that I could remember. Like it was just, now that this is the thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it was, I kind of like that moment.
There was a quest where you, or maybe it wasn't even a quest, but there was like loot on the other side and you had to jump across these platforms. It was like a dam and it was separated, and I was like, I wonder if they're gonna do more of this, because climbing on stuff, because now you can clamber up things, and so I thought maybe there's room for more platforming here. But yeah, another thing that I think I have going for it, it sounded like maybe you were disappointed by not really feeling that strong desire to go and explore, because like one side quest leads to another, and you feel
that's not a disappointment. To me, it's more like a sense of relief that like, I don't have to exhaustively like go around the edges of this map and fill in and make sure everything turns blue.
Right.
Because, you know, okay, if I do my side quests, I'm gonna hit the highlights, and I'm probably going to see, you know, like you were saying, there's like these points where it was like a lookout to like some giant skeleton, you know, and it was right next to 2 other quests. So it's like all I had to do was just like round that corner, you know, and see what was over there by that shack. And they're like, oh, okay, here's a thing. And that's where like the thing got interrupted, because Tannis started saying something, but then Claptrap was like, hey, why don't you go butt stomp this thing over there? Like, I was listening to Tannis, dude.
Yeah. I really like the pacing of it so far. I'm sure it will slow down, but I feel like I'm leveling up quickly. And it's like, okay, I'm already on another planet that feels completely different than Pandora did. I really didn't spend that much time on Pandora, but I spent enough time to feel like I got reacquainted with Pandora, that it was big, that things happened there. And I've seen a lot of talk with Borderlands 3 that it's like, yeah, it is more Borderlands. And they're not wrong. That is a valid point to bring up. But I think the point of praise that comes with it is like, no, these people are really familiar with Borderlands, and they've refined it. Like, yes, it is more of it, but they've taken it and sharpened it, I think, to a pretty fine degree. And just the combat encounters and the ways in which they introduce new enemies, because, like, first you're just pretty much fighting guys that don't have any shields or don't have any armor, and so you don't really have to worry about damage types too much. But then you get shield guys, and then you get armor guys, and then you don't have to worry about ammo that much, but I've definitely ran into fights where, depending on the type of weapon that I'm using, I do run out of ammo, and then that puts you at a severe disadvantage. And then you run into different types of enemies with different, whether they have armor or shields, and you're like, well, now I got to think about that. I just can't focus on eye level. So I feel like I'm making all of these decisions, and they're all coming at the right moments. Like, combat is just constantly evolving, and fights are really frantic and fun. And I feel like, and I can only speak to Flak and summoning these rack, but I feel like that rhymed. I feel like the cooldowns on abilities are not that long.
Right.
And I feel like that was done intentionally. And it's been a long time since I've played Borderlands 2, but I feel like it's much faster than it was in that game, and it seems intentional, where it's like, we want you to constantly be casting your abilities. We want you to be in the fight. We want you to be active. And coupled with the classic second wind mechanic, I don't know, it's just making kind of firefights feel really dynamic and fun and interesting. Like, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Did you? So you're using the rack summon projectile thing as well as the spider ant?
Yeah. So I picked the spider ant because when you're near the spider ant, you get health back, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be playing some of this solo, that sounds really good. And so now things have evolved, and the rack that I'm sending out do cryo damage, which is nice. And now the spider ant has fire. I don't remember what the pet is, but there's one that focuses on damage, and I want to try that as well. I want to try out everything.
Yeah. But that's what I was saying is really nice, though, is that, like, before it was just like, okay, you have this action skill, and then it was just sort of like, you just go down this tree, and as you go down the tree, then, like, these different things augment your action skill as you get, like, a ton of points in. Whereas with 3, like, not only can you swap between what action skill you want to have kind of independent of what skill tree you're going.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have, your pets that you can assign that are separate from your action skill. And then I'm using Moe's, which is the one with the big mech.
Right.
And so with the mech, you basically have 2 weapon slots. And so like the pets, how you have 3 pets, I have 3 weapons that I can assign to those 2 slots. So if I want to, I can put miniguns on both slots, or I can put grenade launchers on both slots, or there's a railgun too. But then like once I'm going down the grenade launcher tree, after 5 points or so, I unlocked rockets. And I thought rockets were going to replace grenades, and they don't. They're separate. So I can have rockets on one and grenades on the other, and do all this crazy explosive damage with just different arcs or whatever. And then there are kind of these secondary things that slot in underneath of different weapons to augment them. So there's I don't even think I have it yet, but there's something that upgrades the rockets to make them home in on enemies rather than shoot straight ahead.
I did. You mentioned this in the preview. I've only done it one time, but you can make it so with Moe's, if you're playing in co-op, your friend can get on the mech.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's one of the it's in one of the skill trees. I forget which one.
And it's just awesome. It's just a really
That's
cool thing.
Yeah.
Blood, I don't know if you ran into this so far with Borderlands 3, but especially in the beginning, I felt like none of my weapons were very good, which I'm sure comes down to it being the beginning of the game and, of course, the randomization that is inherent in Borderlands loot. But it's just kind of a satisfying thing to have happen. Like, I don't know. I feel like with different weapons, there are so many limitations that I have to work around because the guns are so quirky, and it's like, okay, they're good at this, but they have this weird drawback or this thing to them where it's like, okay, this is really powerful. You're going to run ammo super fast.
Well, I got a pistol that essentially serves the role of a submachine gun because it shoots out so quickly with burst fire. But with burst fire, it would just go through magazines so fast that basically I could shoot 3 times and I'd have to reload. But I could put it on full auto and have a little bit more control, but it just wouldn't shoot through guys as quickly.
I'm having difficulty remembering that sometimes my weapons have those alt fire modes because it's like, okay, well, I have these 3 weapons to deal with, but then this weapon is actually 2 different weapons in one. But yeah.
How are you feeling? Because I told you about I was trying to describe the map to you in the preview. Are you really liking the way that the map looks and getting around?
So, not really.
No?
I don't think it's great. It's kind of a similar problem that I'm running into with Control, or I ran into with Control. It's not always clear where to go, and I had it especially on the ship. So when you get to the ship hub for the first time,
yeah, I can see that because it's a little more stacked.
Right,
than like everything on top
everything
of each
is
other.
stacked on top of each other. And to the ship's credit, within the ship itself, it's actually pretty easy to get around, and things are labeled pretty well. But I remember opening up that map for the first time and being like, "What is going on?" And that was where it was the biggest issue for me. It's not as bad on the other 2 planets I've been on, where it's like, okay, things are a lot more open, so it is easier to see. And it's interesting because, at least on the planets, there are times where I feel like your route to get there is not very direct, where it's like, no, I just don't go, in a straight line. I have to go all the way around. I have to loop around to wherever the point is. But it hasn't seemed like a fantastic map, but I haven't been so stuck that it's made me angry. There have just been a couple of times, especially on the ship, where it was like, this isn't super clear.
The other little UI bit that I noticed today that I hadn't picked up on before is that you don't have to go into the menu to change quests.
Yeah.
You can just hit on the D-pad, go left and right.
Do it with the bracket keys, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's really nice. And playing co-op, it is really easy for people to jump in and out. And the experience, like when I jumped into a game, I was level 1 and the people I were playing with were farther than me, but I didn't really notice. Like I didn't feel like I was super behind because of my level. However, I have run into instances where when going to the second planet, I was trying to continue on with the main quest, and I was just like, I am just not doing enough damage. Like, these heavies that you're throwing at me, I just feel like I'm not doing enough damage, which was weird. But then I went and I did some other side quests, and I got another level, and everything seemed to balance out. The other thing is there's a good number of side quests, but it doesn't seem like overloaded. Like I feel like you can, if you are the kind of person that is like, okay, I want to do every side quest before moving on, you can do that, and I don't feel like it's too draining, which is nice. But yeah, during the preview event, you played Flak, right? Did you try all the different pets?
Yeah, I tried the different pets. I'm trying to remember, guys. I know there's a spider and there's a monkey. Oh, the skag. I think I was gravitating towards the skag the most.
Yeah, I think the skag is the one that focuses on damage.
Yeah.
So I got to try that. I haven't seen too much love for Zane. I've seen a little bit.
Yeah, I'm the least familiar with Zane in terms of like what he's like to play as. Because just again, those I feel like our main touch points were like the reveal event, E3, and that last preview that I went to San Francisco for.
Right.
And Zane, I don't remember being an option in any of those. Maybe in the last preview event you could have picked him, and I picked Mose instead because I hadn't played as her. But
reading some impressions on the internet, other people were saying that it seems like he's more gear dependent than the others. And that's kind of the interesting thing about Flak, where those racks that I have can really just do a tremendous amount of work. And I feel like the cooldown is generous enough that you can kind of use it all the time. And so that's interesting. I like that aspect of him a lot.
Sounds like a late game character who would excel in late game.
Flak or Zane?
Zane. The one gear dependent. They always shine at the end.
Brad, how do you feel about Borderlands?
As some may know, I don't have a great history with Borderlands. So far, what you guys have told me has not made me any more interested.
Sure. Is it about what you expected?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a problem with the humor or anything like that. I think it's just after time, it like really starts to get to me. Like, I played Borderlands 2 actually kind of a little bit, but just after a while, it just became too much. There's only so much I could take from it.
Right.
And what the gameplay there in 2 wasn't satisfying enough for me. I haven't played 3 yet, so I have no idea. But so far what I'm hearing is not what I'm interested in right now.
Yeah, I played it at E3 and I liked it at E3, and I really liked Borderlands 1 and 2 at the time. But Borderlands 3 is not a game I was like through the roof excited for.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a hard thing that doesn't play. It's hard to articulate on a podcast, but comparing it to past memories of Borderlands, I actually popped into Tales from the Borderlands, or not Tales from the Borderlands, the pre-sequel a few months ago, just a little bit, just a very tiny bit. And it's kind of this intangible thing where I do think Borderlands 3 just feels better.
For sure, yeah.
There's something about the feeling of the guns and how enemies are reacting to them. Like, it seems to me like it feels better. I'd have to like go back and directly
I'm sure
them.
it does, but it's just it's hard to tell. It's not something you can understand until you play it.
Right. Do you agree with that, Blood? Do you think there's a notable improvement in the gunplay?
I feel like I've been kind of a broken record with just like the impact that bullets will have on enemies, especially shotguns and grenades and explosives, like you just get bodies flying in the air or knocking guys over while they're running at you and that kind of thing.
You do get a lot of that I've noticed, where like any kind of like explosive damage that I'm doing, it will send guys flying. Like guys are flying around a lot, which is very fun. Brad, do you think something like Borderlands or something comparable where the primary focus in a lot of ways is make the numbers go higher? Do you think that kind of vibe is a big factor in what makes you stick around?
For games, not really. Like,
yeah, because I was going to say that, like, you're playing WoW Classic right now.
Yeah,
and that you
like
seem
that's
to really
nice.
enjoy that.
Yeah, of course it's. I would say it's a nice thing, but it's not like the main thing I go for. I guess. I guess like for WoW, for me right now is just seeing everything again. That's like what's really good. I mean, not so much like, oh, I gotta grind this dungeon 3 times to get that drop or something like that.
Sure.
That's just where I'm at with it right now.
Sure.
But yeah, like the whole like in games, I don't really like getting loot all the time. That kind of bugs me after a while. Like this thing, I put it away. But it sounds like it's streamlined a lot more in this game, which is nice.
Yeah.
When you guys were talking about it first, I was like, oh gosh, I'd sound like I'd hate this. Like in Neo, it really bugged me after a while of just loot dropping all the freaking time, like all the time. But they adjusted it so you could like hide loot for certain levels, which is nice.
Right. I think that's actually a fair criticism of Neo, where like loot is just kind of exploding all the time. And I think part of what made that frustrating in Neo is a lot of times like it wasn't better. Like it was just
for sure.
It was just a lot of trash. And I was thinking about something that I don't like in like Fallout 4 or Fallout 76, for example. Like when you search a corpse, it's just like, okay, I'm looking at this list of things, and it is nice, I guess, like in Borderlands, where it's just like, okay, I can very easily see the color of this thing.
Yeah,
it's
good.
a little bit easier to distinguish. And the other thing that they do in Borderlands 3 that makes a huge improvement is when it comes to like the health vials and ammo, you're not having to like manually pick those things up anymore. They just suck up into you.
That's good, yeah.
And so it does, there is some streamlining there, for sure.
I mean, that can make a huge difference.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah.
But hey, it sounds like it's what people want from Borderlands. So that's awesome for fans of Borderlands, man.
Yeah, Brad, I think the thing that is, like, I've got so much stuff to play, but the 2 sessions that I've had with Borderlands 3 so far is like, oh man, I really want to play more of this. Like,
That's awesome.
It's grabbing my attention.
Nothing better than when a game is out and you really like it.
Yeah, that's most of the stuff on this list. In fact, the next game on this list, you and I have both played, at least a little bit, and that is Blasphemous.
Oh yeah, man.
Tell me about Blasphemous.
So Blasphemous. I'm about 4 hours in, and I played a little more today.
Oh, nice.
So
I'm 3, I think.
At the core, Blasphemous is a Metroidvania, like the basic like framework of the game.
Yeah.
But it's very like what a trend for a long time now is Souls-like elements of games, and like this game definitely adopts from that formula. But it's a roguelike, it's a Metroidvania with Souls-like elements of like retrieving stuff when you die, kind of thing like that. But what I like about this game is 2 things. Is obviously the vibe of it. What was the word you used to describe?
I said macabre.
Macabre. Yeah. Excellent word. I love the vibe of it. I think the combat is solid too. That's 3. But I actually really like the design of areas.
That's my biggest thing with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So unlike Bloodstained, there's nothing wrong with Bloodstained. There's different types of Metroidvanias to me, how they're laid out. Bloodstained is like a lot of platforms going up and down. There's platforming, but to me, it's not like going through a certain area, like an old Castlevania game where you're going through an area of like obstacles.
Right.
Bloodstained is just kind of like, there's a little bit of it, but it's much more just open, like Symphony of the Night, where you're just like not having to worry about like spike traps all the time or stuff like that, or like specific setups to knock you off something like that. There's a lot of this in Bloodstained where it's like going through a Castlevania level, which I really love about it.
Right. There are a ton of hazards, and it's the kind of game, Brad, where I'm 3 hours into it and I'm like, wait, what? Because I feel like the areas all feel really dramatically different from each other, and all of them, it's kind of a similar point of praise that I had with Borderlands 3, where it's like, it feels big, but I also feel like I can get through it quickly. Like, when you go to a new area, at least so far, I feel like you can see a lot of it in about 30, 45 minutes. And, like, I just went through the like, poison mist area.
Yeah.
And that was way different than what I encountered before. And I love how they tease you, because I was like, I'm probably going to get an item that's going to let me pass through this. But they're teasing me with this shiny over here. Maybe I can get it. And so I tried it, failed, and was like, okay, I'm going to hold off. And then I got that item, came back, and
I really appreciate, like, the game introduces elements a lot in like areas, like a certain mechanic that will go with an area. Like that is like a sewer kind of area with that like fog or toxin that'll kill you. There's mountains with wind blowing, like almost like the old Ninja Gaidens, where like you got to wait for the wind to blow the right way. There's an area where there's these bells that erupt around through you, so you got to like kill the guy hitting the bells.
Yes.
They're just always introducing like a little tiny idea tied into each area.
Yeah, and they take those ideas, and I think those ideas are strong enough that if they didn't keep adding on to them, they would be strong, but they do. They throw in another little hook with it. So, like, you mentioned the bells that kind of create this explosion. Like, those just become obstacles that you have to dodge, but then it also becomes a light puzzle where, and I love how they present this, where as soon as you see it, it's like, oh, it's obvious, but they don't completely, you have to figure it out a little bit, where there are switches that you need to hit, but you can't get in there. You're completely blocked off. But if you hit this bell that explodes, the explosion will go through and will hit the thing.
Nice.
It's like, okay, that opens the path forward. And it's just another nice layer to it where if they didn't add that, like, those bells would still be interesting and challenging. The same thing with, they're the guys that have, like, that giant thing on them, and they charge forward. And so you want to get behind them to hit them.
Yeah.
But you have this wall climb that you can do with the sword, and if you're wall climbing and they hit the side
wall,
of it, they'll knock you off.
Yeah.
Which is interesting as well. So you have to, like, time your wall climb so they're not charging.
Yeah, I think the game does a good job of, like, introducing a mechanic and slowly just ramping it up as you go through, where you're never, like, super overwhelmed, I would say. Like, you've been prepared for this moment when you get there. And
it handles crypticness very, very well.
Yes.
Well, it has its own kind of specific language that it's using for things. But I had a moment where I got, like, this thing of yarn, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell is this? I have no idea when I'm going to use this. And then not that long after that, I ran into this thing that didn't talk, but I could give it the yarn. And so you kind of, I feel like you have those moments as well where it's like, okay, what is this? And it adds to the mystique and the mystery of the world.
Very much that kind of thing.
But it never feels like it's leaving you completely out there.
No, I'm never like, what the hell am I supposed to do right now? But there's enough mystery if you want to investigate and get a little more out of it. You can.
I want to talk to you and get your take on the difficulty, Brad.
Sure.
What do you think of that so far?
I think it's pretty solid. I've died a good amount of times, so I'm happy about that. I always love when the game pushes back, but I've never felt like BS deaths where I'm like, this sucks. I'm always just like, I like slip and fall in spikes. I'm like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Or like, I just jump and some dude hits me out there. I'm like, shoot.
Yep. I feel like most of my deaths have been some sort of instant death. In that kind of Poison Mist area, those challenge rooms where they, like, lock you in, the last one is pretty intense, and I died.
I think the boss fights offer enough. They push back enough, too.
Man, so that's the thing, and I'm still, 3 hours in, there's still a lot of the game left to go, and so this is a problem that might completely evaporate. But the last boss that I fought, it was like the floating, how to describe this? They're like the floating nuns that have, like, the scepters that they throw at you.
Oh,
There's
I haven't even been to that
multiple
boss
versions
yet.
of them, and they shoot lasers.
Ooh.
And it's not only that.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you have this floor of fire.
Whoa.
And you have to constantly ascend throughout the boss fight. And so they're floating all around and attacking you, and then you have this floor of fire. And initially, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And I felt like, okay, I'm going to have to go through that process where you just kind of learn the fight. And then I just kind of got through it. I don't feel like I got through it elegantly, but I got through it. And I was like, that's interesting. Because a lot of times in these types of games, I feel like something kind of crushes you until you kind of figure out the trick. And here I just sort of felt like I was fumbling my way through it. And I felt that with the other two bosses as well. And I wonder if that changes over time. If
you feel like you're fumbling through it?
Yeah.
I don't think the bosses like offer like a mechanic you have to rely heavily on where I'm like, I need to do this mechanic or I'm dead kind of thing like that. It's like, if I can just time things right and I could figure out what they're doing, I'll get through this. Like the most thing I had to think about was deflecting on a boss. Like he would shoot something and I could just deflect it. And that was about it.
I really love the parry. It doesn't seem that difficult to pull off.
No, it's easy.
Yeah,
it's pretty easy.
So far, I feel like it's been able to be pretty reliable. I do like that there are enemies where you're like, oh, I'll just parry this guy, and then the force of their attack
knocks you back,
so you can't get the counterattack. I thought that was a really nice touch. And with following kind of the Soulsborne formula, I think it's always a brilliant moment. There are a lot of things where I'm like, I don't know what this person's about or what this person's doing or why this is happening, because before there are two boss fights now where this NPC is like, do you want my assistance?
Oh, so I think I figured this out.
Okay.
so I ran into them earlier in the game, and I said, "Sure, you can help me," because I had no idea what the hell was going. I just didn't see what's going to happen.
Process.
So
I was like, yeah, I'll help. I'll let you
They were like a younger person. Then I ran into an older person who kind of asked me the same thing, and I was wondering if this is the same person, but you only get a certain amount of tries with them or something. Like if you have a certain amount of times to have them help you, and once you like use maybe 3 or something, like that's it.
They're gone.
I'm thinking that because maybe like I don't know if this is true, but it could be the same person just getting older each time. And like they'll eventually die.
Interesting.
I don't know if it's true, but that's the vibe I got.
Because there's been 2 instances where they've offered to assistance. I believe it's 2, and I've said yes both times because I'm like,
did they look the same?
I want to say no, but my memory's a little hazy on it.
Okay.
The most recent person was definitely like draped in white.
Okay.
I want to say.
Did they have white hair?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
I think it's the same person. That's just like. Because I'm like, there's just no way that this could be too good to be true just to help you through every fight.
That's what I'm thinking, Brett. And that doubt that these games place in you, where I'm like, if I do this, is this going to
everything comes with a catch,
right?
Like
right,
the game
right.
teaches you that because a lot of the stuff you could put in your sword or whatever like comes with the catch.
Right, and the catch has been significant enough that I'm like, nah.
Yeah,
so far.
Some of them have been nah. I have one equipped right now. Where I'm like, yeah.
Is it the blocking one?
No.
Okay.
That one I was like, no.
Yeah. Which one do you have right now?
I think it just helps me with defense or something like that. It was something like pretty basic.
Gotcha.
Where I didn't feel like I was losing a lot from using it.
Gotcha. I do like, so there's different ways that you can upgrade. You can put the hearts in your sword, and that will give you a benefit, but also give you kind of a negative trait as well. Then you have this rosary that you can
upgrade or put slots in, like gem slots.
But then you actually just have like sword abilities, and so far these have been really useful. So like the downward thrust has been really useful. The slide attack has been really useful. Extending the combo has been really useful, and so you don't really have builds like you would in a Souls game.
Right, you're not like I'm doing strength build or magic build.
Right. But I do appreciate that at least so far the upgrades have felt meaningful. It doesn't seem that hard to get the currency to do the upgrades.
No, but like so. There's these statues in the game that upgrade your sword damage, and when you get one of those, you get like a talent point, I would say. And a lot of the abilities are locked behind getting a certain amount, so you have to progress to a certain distance in the game to even get some. So you can't just grind them out, is the way I see it right now. And I found like 2 of those so far, and I think there's like 8 maybe. So, whew.
Brad, I've kind of had this sensation with Blasphemous. I almost said Bloodstained, which leads into my next point. I really like Blasphemous. I think it's very well made. We didn't even mention the music, which
definitely
is
distinct and vibe of its own. Yeah,
the guitar.
It looks really good too.
It does.
It looks great. Some of the animations are crazy.
Yes,
like these executions
absolutely.
you do on these guys.
Yeah, the death animation. It's almost like a Doom creature death animation.
Yeah.
That's just like just exploding into guts. Yeah, it's fantastic. But for as much as I like it, and for as well crafted as I think a lot of it is, it's a little tempered, I think, by the fact that I feel like I've had a similar experience so much recently, where you've had absolutely phenomenal things like Bloodstained, like Hollow Knight, which and those are just 2 prominent examples. There are a lot of other smaller examples that you can throw in there as well. Is that an experience that you're having as well, or?
Oh, sure. Like to me, right now, at the point in the time, this is a very solid game, but I don't think this is anything like I've never seen before.
Right.
Where I'm like blown away by like what it's doing, but everything that it's doing, I think is doing really good at it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is intentional. I don't totally understand the story so far.
It's of course, it is very Souls-like in its delivery of you piecing this stuff together, you getting stuff and like lore on it.
Right.
Very super cryptic, kind of like you have they say a lot of stuff to you, but you don't know what it means necessarily.
Right. And the thing is, Brad, is I think it works because I don't think it needs to be the super literal thing where I just think Blasphemous is so aesthetically strong that or at least I'm kind of okay with going on this abstract journey because like what do you want to feel after a boss fight? You want to feel some sort of sense of satisfaction. Well, what does Blasphemous do? After you finish a boss fight, you get like transported to this weird
crazy
realm.
like dream vision.
You walk forward, and there's this guy with like this
weird
just
face,
detached head, and it's golden, and it's all
you.
weird. And so it's just kind of something that you go along for the ride, but I think it's so aesthetically strong that it makes that ride.
Yeah, I just think
good.
the world of this game is great.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of its strongest aspects. So you will see some weird stuff in this game, some brutal stuff, but it's really awesome.
Daniel Bloodworth. Is Creature in the Well awesome?
It's pretty good. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say awesome, but
what is Creature in the Well? For me and for the audience, yeah.
It's kind of funny because, like, so last year we had Yoku's Island Express, which mixed like a Metroidvania with a pinball game, but you basically played as the ball, and the environment had bumpers and stuff. Creature in the Well is like, it's kind of like an adventure game, like dungeon crawler, but you play as the bumper, I guess. So you're this robot, and you have, these weapons to like bat these energy balls around, and you have to essentially reactivate these machines. Like there's never any really explanation as to like why you came back, but you've been deactivated for, it seems, decades. And you just go in and you get your pipe, and then you start going through the tutorial. And it's like, okay, you hit the energy balls. And the bumpers in the levels are basically the machinery. And like as the ball bounces around the bumpers, then they charge up. And when they charge up, they go back into the floor. And once you have enough energy, then you can open up new rooms and new passages to get through the initial level. And then once you get through the initial level, like you could kind of like to the hub area that leads to all the different parts of the machine. So you activate, like a power core, and then like some kind of archives, and just all of these things. And like once everything's powered up, then you activate the machine. And along the way, there are a handful of people that you meet, and some logs that you read to where you're like, really, okay, you understand what this machine is here for, and like why you're doing everything, and why it was never activated to begin with. And there's also like a little town right outside as well. Where everyone's afraid of you because there's this weird robot showing up in town.
Sure.
Like, what is he doing here? And the creature is basically there to stop you. It doesn't want you to activate the machine, and it's it believes that it's protecting the town, and so
I'm envisioning a Nemesis-style opponent that just regularly like comes in and tries to confront you.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit more cerebral than that in a way. You never see its face. You always just see like these eyes shining out of the darkness, and then these like big like skeletal hands that come up. And then every level basically ends with sort of a boss fight. But what it does is it grabs this platform and like pulls you down a couple of floors. And so then you've got to bat things back and forth to like fend off its traps and activate things to like raise your platform back up to where the final room is for that area to activate the machine.
Before you started this explanation, you indicated that you maybe wouldn't go so far as to describe this game as awesome. So that means it's got some problems.
Yeah, and I mean I think the problems really just kind of stem from it's a small two-man team that is not going to spend 5 years making a game.
For sure,
So I think they turned around this game pretty quickly, and they did some smart things, like reusing a lot of the same rooms and connecting them in different ways, and then like doing different color palettes and stuff so that they don't all feel the same, but in the end they do kind of all feel the same.
Sure.
Like every area kind of feels the same. Every dungeon has the same number of secret rooms and the same number of lore points and that kind of thing.
Do you think is the core gameplay and kind of the increase in difficulty interesting enough to combat some of those things?
Yeah, I think mechanically it does ramp things up well enough, and it's short enough to where, that stuff doesn't wear on you too much, but it is just like, I would appreciate it a little bit more if like I did go into an area that actually looked substantively different.
Sure.
Or that it didn't feel like I was, okay, go up here and go right and then go left, and then now I go in the center, and it's where, every time the structure did kind of feel like I was sort of doing the same thing, but with these new mechanics, as you get further in, it becomes a little bit more of like a kind of like bullet hell kind of thing, to where like you've just got like a lot of things coming at you that you've got to combat, and either dodge or grab and knock back towards an enemy, sort of like a Ganondorf fight kind of thing.
Do you think when it's introducing kind of those new mechanics, is it done in such a way where it feels like it's suddenly right in your face and you just have to deal with it? Or do you feel like they kind of dole these things out in a measured way that makes it pretty easy to understand quickly?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things later on that like I didn't quite get right away, but I still think that that they are introduced well enough, but then it's like once all of the stuff starts stacking on top of each other, it's like, okay, like I've got to really watch what I'm doing, and I think that's one of the things is just that the skill of just aiming your ball and ricocheting it or hitting what you want from a distance.
Right.
Like it's just something that like you really have to put a lot of thought and practice into, because especially later on, like aiming poorly will either not get you through something quickly enough, because a lot of things are kind of on like timers. So like you hit one thing and then you've got to quickly like hit the next thing and hit the next thing, or otherwise the whole chain will reset. Or if you hit the wrong things, there'll be like explosions and stuff that go off to where like, all right, I just basically, killed myself by not paying more attention to where I'm, throwing balls all over the room.
So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, when you're in these rooms, is it kind of like a dungeon where you're going from one situation to another, and are there checkpoints in between, or is it one place that's shifting and new things are coming into it?
It's more like, yeah, it's a dungeon where like you're just going room to room, and
okay.
like as you get enough energy, then you can unlock doors to the next rooms.
So if you die or fail or whatever, do you have to go back and do all the previous things, or is it like, okay, I can
No,
just
once
get
you've
right back to
unlocked the door, then the door is unlocked.
Gotcha.
So you might have to walk through all of those rooms, but you don't have to solve all the puzzles along the way.
So that probably eases some of the frustration of learning, being able to just get back in
and
there.
then kind of similar to like the old Zelda games, once you get to like right before the boss,
You have a warp.
there's a warp that you
Nice.
put
Nice,
energy
nice,
into,
nice.
and then like the front door of the dungeon, like there's the warp to the boss room. So
Hey man, Link's Awakening next week. Maybe this week by the time you're hearing this. I wanted to talk about like who you're playing as, the people who are afraid of you, the creature. By the end of the game, do you get any real deep insight into any of those things, or is it just kind of...
you definitely get a lot of insight into what you are, but not necessarily who you are as an individual in any way. There's a lot of, about why there are robots and that sort of thing.
Is learning about yourself, like kind of what you are, is that interesting?
I think it is. Like, there's not a lot to it. Like, each one of these little lore things is maybe 2 or 3 sentences. So you're not reading a ton, but I think there's enough little scraps of information here to where you piece it all together pretty well, and that it's like, okay, like I'm getting this, and this actually does seem interesting enough. The other thing that's kind of cool that we didn't touch on is that there are a lot of you do get a lot of different weapons throughout, and they're all pretty cool. Every time you get a new one, it's pretty nice. And so basically there's 2 different things that you have at your disposal. So you have the thing that you smack the ball with, and then you have the other is what they call a charge weapon. And so with the charge weapon, you essentially just hold the ball in place, and then you can aim. But you can actually grab multiple balls that way, or if like something shoots bullets at you, then you grab the bullets, and then you transfer the energy so that you can actually use it. So that basically is like you're holding one button and then you're aiming with the analog stick, and then you hit the other button to whack it in whatever direction that you want it to go. And all of those mechanics feel really good, and then it feels even better when you get these new weapons, these secret weapons and stuff, because they all come with different attributes that work better in different situations. So there's one thing that, like, so the things that will damage you are orange. And so there's a charge weapon that when you grab that, the orange energy will heal you if you grab it and you don't get hit.
Gotcha.
And then, so that's like when you get into those tough situations where I just got hit a lot. Let me switch over to that, get some health back.
And is it just like on a timer where it's like, hey, the orange things will heal you for 10 seconds or whatever?
No, it's just like each shot will give you like just so much back on your health. So like, okay, I'm just gonna like take some shots for a little bit, get my health back, and then focus on getting through the situation that I'm in.
Did you say these weapons were secret weapons?
Most of them are secret. Most of them are found in like side passages that you have to get through pretty tricky challenges to open up.
Neat.
I see. So it's like, hey, you don't have to go in this direction, but if you solve this thing and get through it, you'll get a secret weapon.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And there's another one that's pretty important, I think, is the dual blades that like puts out like a laser sight so that you can see where you're aiming at like all the way across the room rather than just the arrow that's right next to you. And then there's just some fun things that are like in the village that you can pick out. Like there's a baseball bat and a frying pan and that kind of thing.
Nice.
And they just feel good to use. Oh, there's a hammer. Yeah, there's a hammer and an axe for Huber.
Yeah.
So the hammer will slow down time a little bit. So before you get the laser sight, that helps you to aim. And then the axe. And the axe is also the shotgun, essentially.
What?
Because when you hit an energy ball, it splits it.
Oh, okay, like a spread
and
shot.
So like so it spreads it out to hit more things. But the spreads, they're almost like ghosts in a way. So like you have the main ball that you hit stays white, and it will continue to ricochet. But the split balls that come off of it, those are like kind of black with like a white ring around them. And they'll just like hit wherever they're going and then dissipate.
Interesting.
You mentioned it wasn't very long.
Yeah.
How long are we talking?
It's for like 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, if you're trying to get all the secrets.
Everything.
I got like 99% of the secrets are like 2 like costume things that I didn't find.
You mentioned the lore as well, like you're getting 2 to 3 sentences at a time. Is it just like the things that you find throughout a dungeon?
They're
like
usually in
room?
that last room, like that room where you activate whatever the machine is. Like there will be like these extra little lore points. There'll be like one on the thing itself that tells you like what that actually does in terms of how the machine works, and then there's 4 others, and then there's a janitor. And there's a shopkeeper that you get a little bit more information from, too.
Blood, as much as I appreciate your detailed impressions of Creature in the Well, I don't appreciate that you did say the forbidden word.
Oh, man.
I feel like when you are on, it's usually you that triggers it, right? Is that the case?
I don't know. I think Brandon got it one time.
Yeah. Yeah. There was somebody that was saying it was always them. Maybe it was Brandon. The word today, cerebral.
Whoa.
They were like,
Cerebral
oh, you're
board.
trying to be fancy with these words, Bloodworth, and so they have come up with an extra deviant punishment. Today, the Cotton Frame Trap is going to be about Funko Pops,
How dare you?
and you will have to tell me, does this
exist?
video game Funko Pop exist? Yes or no?
Okay.
Are you ready to be terrorized?
Yes.
Is there a Funko Pop for the Cyber Demon from Doom?
No.
There's got to be.
Blood says yes, Brad says no?
Yeah.
Blood is right, there is.
Do you have pictures of these?
I looked at pictures of them. I don't have them offhand.
Okay.
But
The
yeah,
Cyber
I was making this.
Demon?
Yeah. Aloy from Horizon.
Yes. Come on, you got it. Unless Sony wants them. Those Sony
No.
bucks.
Brad is right. There it is.
Okay.
Ori from Ori and the Blind Forest.
No.
I'm gonna go with no. Yeah.
You're both right.
Yeah.
There is not one for Ori. People have done custom
ones, but
Funko
not like
Pops?
official.
Yeah.
I just think that'd be like a really hard thing to make look like that.
Sure.
They make everything.
Everything. Yeah, they make a
man.
cyber demon. Why
Yeah.
not?
Joker from Persona 5.
Yes.
I'm gonna say no.
Brad is right.
Oh,
100%
okay.
Joker.
I did not have the faith.
I was actually surprised by that one. I don't know why, but that one surprised me. Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal.
Sweet Tooth.
No, I think
I'm gonna say
I think it
no.
was too early.
You're both wrong.
Oh, Sweet
They
Tooth.
did
There's
it?
a Sweet Tooth Funko Pop. You can get it on Amazon
God
if you so
dang it.
desire. That is a pretty meager caught in a frame trap results there. Brad wins by 1 point. It was 2-1. The Funko
Wait.
Pops.
We both got a no wrong, so
Yeah.
it's 3-2, right?
Oh no, you're right. You got that was just bad scorekeeping. You're right. You both got Ori from the Blind Forest. I was just talking about the custom Funko Pops and I didn't mark it down. You're right. Brad got 3, Blood got 2.
Not that it making any difference
Yeah,
to
Brad-
get that correction.
Brad still wins.
I've never felt so upset about winning.
Yeah, you won the Funko Pop
I know,
one.
dude.
You're gonna have to
Oh.
live with that forever, man.
I know.
You're gonna have to live with that forever. Usually, Brad, with these caught in the frame traps, we've had it be themed around the thing. So if you want to think of,
All right. Let me think of all right, my theming for this is.
hold on. You got some time to think about it to
Okay.
finalize it because we have some wonderful sponsors
Yeah.
who are sponsoring this Caught in a Frame Trap. Our first sponsor is Greg, TheDarkKnight Kettering. Thank you so much, Greg. Next, we have Zoteg. Do you play Final Fantasy XIV? Are you on the Crystal Data Center? Search at Zoteg on Twitter for a link to the EZA Crystal Discord server. Thank you so much, Zoteg. Next, we have Accounts Payable. Would like to give us a free shout out. What would we like to shout out today, gentlemen?
Whew. Shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out anything. You shout out anything
I'm
you
going to
want.
shout out Ben Prunty, composer of FTL and a lot of other games.
What a shout
He
out.
put out a playlist this week, which is just it's just his chill playlist. Whole bunch of stuff that I'd never heard before. A lot of games or projects that I'd never heard of before, but it was real good for editing you guys' scripts.
Blood, that was a classy shout
That was
out.
way classier than I was going to go.
That was a classy
Good
shout
job,
out.
dude.
That's of a higher caliber.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's good. Next we have Gift of Heaven. Gift of Heaven is a rad and righteous RPG created by O.M. Hawkstelter for your 3DS. In this apocalyptic fable, World Emperor Machiavis finds himself powerless to conquer the evil inherent in Empire itself. In his unrelenting quest for utopia, he conspires with the last archaic vampire to combine Earth with heaven in an unholy alchemy intended to end the world as we know it. At the same time, the dread wizard Killboz seeks to destroy all life by summoning the Black Hole Sun. One way or another, the end is coming, and so is Gift of Heaven. When you download the prologue for free using the RPG Maker 3DS FES 3DS app, just search on the app for the nickname OM Hawk, like the bird. Check out Gift of Heaven, the Gift of Heaven YouTube channel to watch the prologue launch trailer and a bizarre promotional short film. And let OM know what you think in his thread on the Easy Allies forums. Thank you so much. Next, we have Daventry Vaporworks, who would like to highlight the Scleroderma Foundation. Scleroderma Foundation is a qualified national nonprofit whose primary goal is to raise funds for their threefold mission of support, education, and research. Scleroderma is a rare chronic connective tissue disease most commonly characterized by hardening of the skin. The foundation has 20 active chapters and 160 support groups across the United States. Find out more at the link in the description. This sponsorship is in memory of the best grandma around. Thank you so much. After that, we have Alex AI looking for more Game Boy soundtracks for your collection. Check out Dragon Quest Monsters 1 for some melancholic overworld tunes in Game Boy Color quality and support the Allies. Last but certainly not least, we have the mega sponsor! ViewSonic. It goes without saying that gaming relies on fast reaction times, and if you're often finding yourself on the losing end of those nail-biting standoffs, the problem might not be your performance, it might be your monitors. With ViewSonic Elite's expansive line of gaming monitors, users are delivered the performance modern gaming requires. Take the 24-inch XG240R with its blazing fast 144 Hz refresh rate and 1 millisecond response time. You'll experience the hyper-responsiveness of esports pros. I will never experience that. And with the XG240R's fully customizable RGB backlighting, users can sync to partnered hardware to illuminate their gaming atmosphere. Learn more about ViewSonic Elite by visiting viewsonic.com/elite. And for giveaways and updates, follow at ViewSonic Gaming on social media. Brad?
Yes.
You got a way out of here?
Yeah, so I apologize to everyone who's a fan of Funko Pops, but I don't like them.
Yeah.
I'm putting them all in a box. This is my box with every Funko Pop ever. I'm throwing it in the trash. It's out of here, dude.
So, wherever you are right now, if you have Funko Pops on your shelf and they're mysteriously gone,
That's right. I took them.
That's the power of Frame Trap
That's
and
right.
Brad.
That's right.
I'm sorry if you were a fan,
I'm
but
sorry, too. Sorry.
they're in the trash now.
Don't hate me.
Yep. They're already at the dump. All right, what are we going to talk about next? We still have so much to talk about. Let's talk about Monster Hunter World Iceborne.
Ooh.
Perhaps it's no surprise that I went there. But not only did I review, I played through Iceborne on my own. We did our first weekly hunts last week, and that was really fun, getting to play with Huber and Ian. And I know, Brad, someday you're like... Someday, yeah, there's a lot...
I have it.
I know, there's a lot going on. But Iceborne was obviously something I was looking forward to for a long time. And, like, I just want to say, it's something we already commented on with Monster Hunter World, but Iceborne, I feel like, just has done a lot right when it comes to post-launch support, free updates. Like, yes, they have microtransactions.
Yes,
there's things you can do, but they're not in your face at all. It's not shoving this stuff down your throat. There's a lot going on. They're doing events to try to make it exciting. They're adding new monsters for free. There's a new monster coming next month for free. And I said it in the review, but I think what is really worth highlighting is just how massive Iceborne feels. I mean...
Like a full expansion.
Yeah. I believe the marketing was massive expansion, and, you know...
Reminds me of like an MMO expansion, like big deal.
Yeah, it's... I think just the general what you're going for in Monster Hunter makes it feel a lot different than an MMO, but I think the sentiment is true,
scale.
where it's just so big. There's so much going on. And they do a lot of things where it's like they really took a big look at world, and they're like, okay, the scale of it is impressive, but how can we just make this a better game? And getting around Celiana is fantastic. Like, everything is just close together. They try to streamline things to make just the process of getting around smoother, to the point where, like, it's almost kind of, there are moments in the story where you go back to the old base and you're like, oh man, like, I really miss that new base. That's really cool. And obviously there's so much to talk about with variations on old monsters, the fact that every monster in Master Rank has new things going on, brand new monsters that have never been in Monster Hunter before. Like, all that stuff is exciting, but I feel like they really went above and beyond. Like, it is really just a treat going into your room and just like completely customizing it, changing what's on the walls, changing the look of the furniture. That's really exciting. You can take pictures of stuff. That's really cool. Going into the gathering hub and getting into like the bath with your Palico and splashing water on it.
Man, that's funny.
And I said in the review, but I think it's a sentiment that, like, Monster Hunter World is incredible in a lot of ways, and you can talk about the mechanics, and there's a lot to dig into there that is worth commending. But I think what really makes you just so passionate about it is it takes all that depth and wraps it in something that feels like a great distinct world that's just brimming with personality. And it's these little touches, it's these things that they don't forget as they're chasing this scale. You know, I think that really goes a long way, and just how much warmth there is in Celiana as a whole, I think is commendable. And it's really, really cool. But yeah, the thing I will say about Iceborne is they definitely tell a story, but it's kind of almost the exact same sensation that I had with World, where it's like, yeah, that definitely happened, and you're just not as emotionally invested as you want to be. And it doesn't bother you too much because the hunts are fantastic. The thing that I will say Brad, do you remember the Zora Magdaros
Yes.
fights
Yeah,
in
yeah,
World?
I do.
So they don't have anything that's like that, where it feels like just everything kind of comes to a grinding halt, and you feel like you're not really playing the game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen here. They do have set piece moments, but they're just so much better. They're presented better. They don't feel as drawn out. It still feels like the core game is in there. It's a little bit more present. What I don't like, though, is in Monster Hunter World, you have to. There's a point where things do come to a halt, and you just have to basically gather tracks. They kind of repeat that, where you kind of just have to fill up bars again, and it's just like you don't need to do this.
Sure, yeah.
Like you just don't need to do this. It's not that enjoyable. It's not that big of a deal. It's not worth like railing on forever. But it's a weird thing to introduce. And the cutscene thing is a huge bummer. The fact that like
yeah, that's my biggest complaint.
Right. So to explain to people who aren't familiar, let's say you want to go through the story with a friend, and somebody posts a new quest. They have to go and see the cutscene before you can join them, and so it's just kind of this weird disconnect that is frustrating.
It's just
and
waiting. You have to wait around, which is always a bummer.
Yeah. But man, as far as the experience of hunting goes, like a lot of the monsters are just so aggressive, and the way fights are tuned. Like I was going through Iceborne for review completely on my own, and these things they feel like they take a lot longer to take down, and so I would have these super intense hunts where it'd be like, that took me 48 minutes by myself. And that didn't happen right away, but you're kind of building up to it. And I love that. I love having these grueling, drawn-out, intense fights where mistakes really punish you, because this is the expansion, and you're building these creatures up in a way where they feel like they should have some threat, and I really, really like that.
I have a question. So since this is an expansion, it's past the base game, does the game make it easy to catch up to this? Or is it just like you got to go through it all like how everyone else did when Monster Hunter World first came out?
So if you're jumping into Iceborne brand new, you can't just go to the expansion. You have to finish the story of Monster Hunter World.
Right, but I'm just saying, does it give you gear or something to make going through the old content easier, just to get you to the new stuff?
So what they've done, and I haven't experienced this myself, but there's a benefit. There's a bonus you can get. It's kind of like a student instructor thing where experienced hunters, if you go out of your way to help new hunters who are trying to catch up, you'll get a bonus.
Oh, okay. So some sort of incentive.
Yes, there's some sort of system in place to try to catch people up. I haven't experienced this myself. I don't know all the details, but it's like this campaign that they're doing where it's like, hey, help and catch people up. The other thing that I will say about the expansion is like getting your initial Rarity 9 weapons is not difficult at all. Like you can go, and as long as you do some gathering and poking around, it's really not that bad. I feel like the first couple of monsters, Beototus and Bomburo, are not that difficult. Beototus is a little annoying, but if you've gotten through the story of Monster Hunter World, even if it's been a while, I feel like you'll be relatively okay.
I have a question with like the scaling. So if you're with 2 people, does it treat the monster with health wise of having 4, or is it?
Great question.
Because I think that's how it was in the original.
So the way that it worked in Monster Hunter World is there were 2 modes it could be in. If you're hunting by yourself, the monster will be scaled for that. Or if you're hunting with any other group size, whether it's 2, 3, or 4,
it'll be the same.
It'll be a multiplayer kind of hunt. The way that it scales it now is they've added a 2-player scaling. So if it's just you and somebody else, it won't be as difficult as if it was, or the monster won't be as beefy as it would be for 3 or 4 people.
That's really good. Because I played a lot of the base game with just 2-player, and it just felt like sometimes it would take forever.
That is the thing about Iceborne, I think, especially as you're trying to get your bearings and wrap your head around everything and get better gear, is hunts in general do take
longer, just period.
But you still kind of have the same, and I think that's why I love it in Iceborne, is playing a lot of World, you get to a point where you're like, man, I've kind of seen it. I know what these things are going to do. Generally, obviously, like Arch-Tempered is an exception to that.
Sure,
It's like, this is really hard. But that is the thing with Iceborne, is I've kind of had that same arc where it's like, man, these hunts are really taking a long time, but you get better gear, you start hunting with other hunters, and things kind of balance
Like,
out.
I don't have a problem as long as it's balanced around, like, what I'm doing specifically. Like, if it takes a long time, but it's balanced around for 2 people, then I have no problem with that.
Yeah. In my experience, the difficulty for Iceborne has felt really satisfying, where it hasn't been
A cakewalk?
super difficult. Like, I'll put it to you this way. I played the Iceborne story completely by myself. Obviously, I played it at E3, and I did the Capcom preview event, so I had some familiarity of early game stuff going into it. But even though I carded on late game monsters, on certain monsters, I think I carded maybe on Barioth as well. I never completely failed a quest.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
right.
You didn't even, like, die, really, or fail a mission.
Right, I didn't fail a quest, and so it was difficult enough that quests were taking a long time, or that I would cart, but it wasn't so bad that it was like constant failure.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it definitely feels like it's pushing you, but because it's coming after World and because you have a base understanding of the mechanics, I feel like you can get through it just fine if you are upgrading gear properly and you understand the core systems. But, man, the new Clutch Claw is really interesting, too.
What is that?
So the way the Clutch Claw works, it's essentially a grappling hook.
Oh,
Brad.
okay.
That's
cool.
you can grapple onto the monster pretty much any time.
It's like Lost Planet.
And if you're using a heavy weapon, you'll tenderize the part of the monster, which means
Tenderize?
right. So like let's say you do a clutch. I'm using a heavy weapon. I'm using my greatsword. I hit the head. All subsequent attacks from myself and my other party members will do bonus damage.
Oh, okay.
And that can really be really substantial. If you're using a light weapon and you do a Clutch Claw attack, they'll drop slinger ammo.
Oh, okay.
And slinger ammo is even more valuable now. So for like me as a greatsword user, I've got different charge attacks that I can do. By using slinger ammo, I can charge and then like do a slinger ammo burst and then go to my my final charge. So it's kind of letting you skip a step.
Oh, okay,
which
cool.
is really, really nice. And so you can do it faster. And so it makes slinger ammo even more valuable. And so when somebody does that Clutch Claw attack and they drop that ammo, you're like, hey, thanks, man. And so it adds to kind of the like community vibe, the same way that like somebody putting down a trap or somebody using life powder.
Helpful thing for the group.
Right. It's like, oh, thanks for doing that. You're benefiting me.
Can you
in some
just
way.
spam Clutch Claw, or is it like
That's the thing, and that was a huge concern going into Iceborne. Is like, hey, is this going to be way too powerful? So the thing has very limited range.
Okay.
And yeah, that is
So it's like
something you have to
Falcon
account
Punch.
for. But also, when you're on the monster, if you're not wearing like a particular mantle and it doesn't attack, it can just knock you off.
Oh.
And these monsters, a lot of them are super aggressive. And so finding a moment where you can get a Clutch Claw attack,
Yeah.
and it's not something you
rare.
can just spam. I'm always hesitant to say this because like there are crazy players out there
that
who
will.
find plenty of ways to break the game. But I think just as a normal player going through it never felt like it was too much or it was as I said in my review, a crutch that you can rely on.
Cool.
So yeah, I definitely wasn't spamming it.
Are there new weapons? Like new weapon
There are
types?
There are not new weapons. So there
Gotcha.
are changes to the existing weapons.
Gotcha.
And then there's the Clutch Claw, which is universal for everybody, but there are no new weapons.
Cool,
Yeah.
man.
That's the thing about Monster Hunter World, though, is like you try to learn a new weapon and it suddenly just feels like a whole new game.
It does, yeah.
And
They're
that's
super
really
different.
cool. I swear by my greatsword, but
Yeah.
someday we'll get more proficient in the other weapons. Hopefully, maybe, if I ever. It's the thing, but that's why I love Monster Hunter World so much. Is it's not like I'm bored of just using the greatsword all the
Sure,
time.
yeah.
Like it's still just as exciting, and I think the new changes in Iceborne have kind of refreshed.
Yeah,
That
totally.
love
That's awesome.
of the greatsword. So
The classic Monster Hunter
things
weapon,
will just
baby.
have to wait, I guess. Yeah. But Brett, if you do ever jump in, I'm excited.
Oh,
to,
yeah. I definitely want to.
to play with you. But you've been really busy
Yeah.
with
All of us have.
Gears of War 5.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which
Yeah.
is not of war.
Yeah.
There is no more of war in Gears.
Oh, it's just Gears 5.
Yeah.
Is it not Gears of War 5?
It is just Gears 5.
What?
I had to go through and fix Brad's script because it was Gears of War all through it. I had to take out all those of Wars.
I heard them calling it Gears 5, but I thought they were just like shortening it.
That's the name of the game is Gears 5.
Okay.
What? Was Gears 4 the same way?
Did they do this to avoid God of War confusion?
I think maybe.
That's so funny.
I've been calling it Gears of War 5.
Of course you have.
Of course
Why
I
wouldn't you have?
Did it it just changed with 5?
Yeah.
Gears of War 4 was still Gears of War 4?
Well, it changed with Gears Pop. Because it's not Gears of War
They
Pop.
announced them both at the same time.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but Gears Pop came out sooner.
Well, came out, but they announced them in the same
You're
moment,
right.
pretty much. Yeah.
You're right.
That's so funny. Huh.
Gears 5. All right. Brad, I've played the first chapter of Gears of War 5, and here's what I'll say. The shooting feels really good, and it looks
Great.
fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
unbelievable. I'm playing on PC.
it looks great.
And it looks unbelievably
I played
good
on both,
PC.
yeah. They both look really good.
But I feel like my kind of positive impressions of just the very beginning seem to be echoed by people for the whole thing. Like, people seem to be really into it, and it seems like you had a good time.
Yeah, I did. Especially
Gears
after 4, which was kind of like...
Yeah, well, like you and Huber got a ways too, and just kind of like
Yes, we pittered. I've been every Gears of War, and that was
Yeah.
like the first one we just like pittered
I
down.
feel like I like Gears of War 4 more than any other ally, but you didn't super care for Gears of War 4. It just felt kind of bland to you.
Sure, yeah. Like, there's nothing like I was like, this sucks or anything like that.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just wasn't doing it for me at the time.
Right.
to me, and I don't even think I ended up playing the final game. I played it at like E3 or something, but I was just like, this just feels like they're doing the exact same thing, but they somehow came up with a different name for it. Like, what is the difference between the locust and the swarm? I don't really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like-
that was definitely an odd moment where it's like, this is the same thing, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Except for apparently there's
robots.
like the beginning of that game was like full of robots. And
Yes,
everyone hated
so many
that.
robots. yeah.
Man, I actually liked the robots.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the only person. Like,
I know. I feel like I liked Gears of War 4 more than a lot of people. I thought here was my thing about Gears of War 4, where it just felt remarkably solid, and I felt like
Sure.
they tried to do enough exciting set piece moments throughout the game, and the campaign was tight enough that it was a good time going through
Sure.
it. Especially going to like the Marcus's
Marcus's-
mansion,
yeah.
and then that whole escape sequence felt really good. The end of the game, you're in like a mech.
Yeah.
That felt pretty good. But anyway, beyond all that, let's talk about Gears 5. And let's talk about your feelings to it, because it seems like you're a lot warmer on Gears 5. And I want
Yeah.
to know why. I want to dissect that.
Gears 4, well, I have to go back to Gears 4 because Gears 4 introduces the new cast kind of thing. It's I would say, the soft reboot of the franchise.
Right.
Like, Marcus is taking a backseat. Here's these new characters. You got JD, you got Kate, and you got Del. This game, and they were just kind of like, okay. In the last game, I felt like they're just okay. This time, they're still Gears characters, I would say, in this game, but they take more of an effort to make them likable and just give you more moments between these characters and their motivations, where it just feels like these are more normal people, I would guess, that you can kind of connect with. So just going blah all the time and stuff like that. Of course, they're still shining. It's Gears of War. But I just really appreciate the small character steps they took. And the campaign is the most different campaign it's ever been for the series, I would say. So Act 1 is what you've been playing through. It's the more traditional part of the campaign, I would say, where it's like going through an area, pretty linear.
Yes.
Once you get to Act 2, it opens up. You're in like this big area. You can freely go through
You're like
stuff.
sliding around on ice, right?
Yeah, your skiff. It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
snowmobile
yeah.
almost
Oh, wow.
with a kite. So you can go through this whole area. There's a bunch of side areas you could go to that are off the path. You just check something out, you get some new sick upgrade for your little robot companion. Just giving you like little incentives to go through this world and make it feel more alive. There's like notes you could find, just like it's small RPG elements, I would guess. But it's something that I think the campaign's needed. Something just to liven it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And to kind of your point about Gears 4, for as much as I liked gameplay segments of it, as far as the narrative was concerned, I'm really glad at the beginning of Gears 5 they recapped Gears 4 because I was like, man, I don't remember the story at all. Which I have a bad memory, but I also think it kind of speaks to
Gears.
the Gears storytelling. And it seems like even early on, the interactions between characters are maybe a little bit more interesting because we had this moment where I was like, yeah, I don't know that I really like JD. And you're like, I think the story is trying to do that, to create that friction between him and his father.
That's what it feels like. It feels more deliberate.
Right.
Where it's
and
not
it's
like you just don't like this character even though you're supposed to like this character.
Right. And it's like, and it was like, oh, yeah, they are trying to do that. And I think that's more interesting.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
I really like that. But talk about the open-endedness, because when you're like, hey, they made Gears, but it's more open, I don't think that's an immediate sell. Like that in and on its face is an immediate sell, but they seem to have done it in a way that's
besides
good.
being open, it feels like the most diverse in environments too. Like the first area, you're in that city. The next area, you're in some huge snow area. I don't really want to talk about the other areas, but they are much different from those.
Sure.
You feel like, so in this Gears, you feel like you're globe-trotting more. You're seeing more of the world, actually, instead of just running through a vehicle part in this new area.
Right. You're
like actually going around like the planet and huge thing. You're seeing more of the world.
The old games kind of had that problem a bit. It was
Sure,
like you always had the same kind of city, and then the tunnels and.
But you're getting an idea of what the rest of the world is like compared to like this just little tiny area, like wherever country you're in. But like, you're seeing more of the world. You're seeing more of the people. You're learning more about the history, like what's going on, all that stuff, which I appreciate.
When you have this open-endedness, though, seeing more of the world is really cool, but do you feel like, I don't know, this is a crude way of describing it, but does it kind of give you a Metroidvania satisfaction where it's like, oh, I saw something that maybe not everybody will see, or this feels like a secret area?
Well, I mean, to me, it's like, I wouldn't say like Metroidvania, because I don't think this is what you're talking about. To me, it's just like finding like some crazy discovery. These aren't like super hidden things out there.
Right.
They're just like little bonus things you could do if you want, and sometimes they offer different gameplay tweaks.
Right, and so that's kind of what I want to focus on is how is the gameplay changing amidst these different paths in the same area?
So the core gameplay is pretty much the same, which is like what Gears bread and butter is cover shooting, but there's just like sometimes tiny elements like I bring up in the review. There's one part where your robot companion Jack, who is with you the whole game, he is like carrying something, you have to protect him to get him out of there. Just something small like that. It's not gonna like be some crazy set piece thing like that. Just small tweaks to like the firefights you're used to. There's a part where there's parts like this in the game, but this one is really like you're on frozen water, and there's guys running out, and you could shoot the water out and them falling into it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty
nice.
cool.
Yeah.
It's just little tiny things like that. It's not gonna like be some crazy thing where you're getting in the mech. There's like a mech part in it, but not like this is the mech section. This is the car section.
Are you on the skiff a lot, and is that thing fun to control?
Yeah, it controls very well. You're on it quite a bit.
Cool.
I think what's the strength of a lot of these areas is they don't drag. These are not too long. They end just when they need to. I never felt like, dude, please end. Please end.
It's kind of that thing that I was talking about with Borderlands 3, where it's like, man, this feels like it feels better, but it's been a while, and so you're not sure. I kind of had that sensation with Gears 5, where I'm like, man, the weapons feel really fantastic. I feel like the way that enemies are reacting to things, I don't know if it's just the UI or the actual feedback or something, but this feels really, really good.
It does.
And maybe that just speaks to Gears always feeling good, but I think in Gears 5, it was nice to just immediately get into it.
It reminds you, and you're like, oh yeah, this plays really well.
Right. And just, man, like, using the Lancer, just that chainsaw, that is a fucking great video game weapon.
Yeah, it's just an iconic weapon.
Right.
I think the story is better too. It definitely it actually tries to tell a story that ties into the larger narrative of everything. It's not about like a lot of what 4 was like Marcus and his dad dealing with like that. That doesn't matter. This is like about the big threat of these swarm things going, like trying to actually explain what these are to you.
Okay, because that's what we alluded to before, where it's like, I think a big disappointment in Gears 4 is like the swarm doesn't feel all that different, and the reasons that they presented for them being around, it just kind of felt like they couldn't justify this new threat in a way that felt new or exciting or interesting or all of that. So it sounds like what you're saying is in Gears 5, they figure it out. They present them in a more interesting way.
They like, you learn about them, you learn about their history and all that. I don't want to say what it is, but the game definitely puts in the effort to tell that. Also, one thing that I really liked about it is there's like a lot of like slower paced moments that felt more horror-esque, I would say. Like going through dark areas
That's cool, because
it reminded me
felt
of
like
Gears of War 1.
was going for that.
Well, in
and
the
it
early
didn't
showings,
really,
yeah, they had that.
Because like Gears 4, I felt like you're always with, I can't remember, but you're always with like a bunch of people. 2 or in 5, you're not. It's like a lot of time it's just 2 people going in, like that really old vibe you got with Dom and Marcus going through something in really quiet areas, really dark, just more of that horror vibe.
That's something that, unless I'm not remembering something from the other games, but I've finished every other Gears game, and I felt like nothing really captured that kind of dark horror vibe as well as Gears 1 and the Krill and those sequences. And so when you're saying, hey, Gears 5 brings that back, I think that's really exciting.
They definitely make more of an effort, because it felt like as Gears 1, 2, and 3, it just got bigger. So they're kind of focused on 5 has some big moments, but it definitely scales it back down.
That's fantastic. The new generation, going into them again, do you feel like they come into their own more a little bit here and stand toe-to-toe with kind of the classic cast?
I mean, to me, Marcus is just the best because it's Marcus.
Yeah.
Like, he's the classic. I love Marcus, but they definitely...
that voice.
They definitely, like, Kate's way better than I remember now. Kate's way better. Dell's way better. Like, even JD's way better this time around. So I think the characters are much stronger in this game than they have been.
Even just in the first act, there's so much that they do, like kind of that like helicopter conversation that Marcus has with Kate, and they're kind of talking about processing the trauma
what's going on,
and I think they present Baird really well also in his lab and
Science guy now
talking about like how much effort he puts into creating these machines and how this immediately to destroy them. And the writing has felt a little sharper, I think, and offers some more character more immediately, which is really nice. Sure.
It definitely feels like they realized what people didn't like about 4. And they're like, well, let's try to improve upon that. I think they did mostly with the campaign.
Yeah, and I think Gears and Borderlands, maybe not for a lot of people.
For sure.
But I think for maybe me and maybe other allies and maybe some other people out there kind of suffers that problem of it's like, yeah, we know what this is going to be. Like, man, they've been making Gears games that have seemed
there's
so
been
visually similar.
6.
Right. And
well, now there's even more with like Funko Pops.
it's nice playing Borderlands 3 and Gears 5 and being like, oh no, like there's something here. It doesn't just feel like this completely dead animal. Like there's life in this thing. And they're finding it, and they're finding ways to refine it and make it better.
Yeah, to me, Gears 5 feels like if you beat Gears 1, 2, 3, you play Judgment, you're like, okay, whatever. Then you play 4, and you're like, okay. I think 5 is a much stronger return for it. Where this is like a game you can hop back and be like, oh, this is fun.
I wonder if that's also part of the reason why I liked Gears 4 as much as I did.
Sure,
because
of
of Judgment,
right.
where it really felt like that.
Yeah,
where
totally.
It was like, there were some cool ideas it had with like the traps and stuff, but it just really felt like we're making another Gears game because we've got to make another Gears game.
Yeah,
it was really funny how both of those series, like Gears of War and God of War, both had that moment of like, here's this prequel that should not exist. That somehow got the green light.
It's funny.
Judgment. Oh, they
are you
both
talking
had
about,
that.
are you talking about God of War Ascension?
They both had that. Yeah.
It's funny that you talk about God of War Ascension like that, because when I initially played God of War Ascension, that was how I felt, where I was like, man, this just kind of feels like the same old thing. And it's interesting how expectations can play into it, where I think, because I revisited God of War Ascension, I played all the way through it before the new God of War came out. And I really liked it, but I think it was because I went into it with those expectations. Yeah. And man, if you go in thinking a certain way or not expecting a lot, it can really change how you do things. That was my experience with God of War Ascension. Yeah. It's interesting.
Multiplayer's still fun.
Tell me about Escape, because I don't feel like I see people really talking about Escape.
Escape is a...
Yeah, I mean, even in the review, your impressions are kind of mixed.
Like, it's fine. But you do it 3 times and you're done. You don't ever need to do it again. So what it is, you start in this hive and you're with 2 other people and you have to escape. Pretty much, that's the basic gist of it. there's character classes. You can have 3 characters, but there's like also the Terminator now and Sarah Connor.
I got a notification from the Xbox app where it was like, hey, download the Terminator pack now.
Yeah, I didn't show any of them in the review, I think, because I don't
fine.
even know if you can really, most people could use these characters or not, but it's just going through this area. There's waves, you pick up ammo, you got like an ultimate ability and a passive ability. It's fine. It's fun, especially when you bump the difficulty up, which is good, but then like you do it, you don't need to do it again. You're fine. That's just how it is. It's like it's fun, but it doesn't last that long.
Gotcha. How do you feel about the general multiplayer? And then there's
so the general
of course.
multiplayer is Gears multiplayer.
Gotcha.
It hasn't changed a whole lot. There's competitive, which is cool because it adds a few different modes like King of the Hill and stuff, which is sick if you want to compete more. And there's ranked in that also. There's also just the quick play, the death match. Still fun. Still, if you're just doing basic death match, it's still a shotgun fest most of the time.
Yeah. That shotgun fest can be...
It could be annoying.
Right.
But I adapted to it a lot because I played a lot of it.
If you're on the winning team, it can be really fun.
Sure, yeah.
And man, just shooting, having one hit and having them explode is really awesome.
Gears of War has like the best pops in games, dude.
And it
The
does.
best
It pops. It has that sound.
Everything
it has that
pops,
shotgun
dude.
sound.
It's so nice.
That
Yeah,
is really,
it's great.
really good. But it can also just be maddening where like out of nowhere it's like, oh yeah, I'm dead instantly. Yeah, for sure.
So the thing that I think weakens about Escape is I think Horde mode is just so much more enjoyable, which is like a team-based thing of you surviving these waves instead of doing just running out.
Do you think Escape needs to be fleshed out more then?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, to me, it's just kind of like its core like basic thing is just like it gets pretty old fast. Like Horde mode's cool because it just throws all these crazy bosses at you and you're just like pinned down in this location. That's really exciting to me, but Escape is just I just can't like get super into it. There's nothing like wrong with it, but it just doesn't have legs, I feel like. It just is like a new mode they play and they're like, oh, this is fun, let's just throw it in kind of thing. I think people will have fun with it, but to me, Horde mode is just much more enjoyable.
So through the process of this review, do you feel like it has kind of re-energized your interest in Gears?
Yes.
Like now you'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
Gears 6, let's
Because
go.
when Gears 5 was being like shown, like none of us were that hot on it.
I'm just going to say they did
did a poor job of showing that game, I feel like, too.
Yes.
But definitely when Gears 6 gets announced, I'll be much more interested.
Cool. That's exciting to hear. Blood, what's your take on Gears of War?
I mean, I'm definitely kind of like feeling like maybe it's like maybe I should catch up now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what would you have to catch up on, 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I think I reviewed Judgment in 3, so.
Oh.
That's the thing about 4 is I don't feel like 4 is that long.
No, I don't think they're.
How
Like, this
long
isn't
is
even that.
5?
So 5, I like saw every area that I could find.
Yeah.
And it was like a little over 7 hours.
Oh, damn.
So it's not long.
That's super chill,
But it
man.
doesn't need to be any longer is what I felt like.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for short games.
Yeah.
Thank you for short games. Please. Cool. The last game that we're going to talk about, I don't know that I want to spend too much time on, and maybe if you guys have questions,
Okay.
you can bounce off me, but that is Astral Chain, because I feel like I really said what I needed to say in the review. And I feel like what I'm going to say here is just kind of echoing that.
Sure.
Where playing that game is so awesome, and it takes so many cues from what Platinum has done in the past, but the fact that you are controlling these monsters makes it really, really fun and makes it feel fresh, even though it has that template kind of underpinning it. And what I love, I feel like there are things that, as a critic, I realize like, oh, I really appreciate that. Like if you do that, I'm gonna notice it. I'm gonna appreciate it. All of the legions that you get, those are the different monsters that you're controlling. They all have such a great purpose, and I never felt like one was completely
Dominant.
worthless. Yeah, and I feel that way about the different weapons. So you have kind of this all-around melee weapon, this big giant sword that's slow but does a ton of damage. Then you have this blaster. All of those are useful as well, and I love when a design is strong enough that it can support all of those options. But the other thing that Astral Chain has going for it, it's not just this pure action game, because all these legions have skill trees, and you're leveling them up, and you're assigning them abilities, and that can go a long way as well. And so, like, the Axe Legion, which is the last Legion that you get, it has this ability where it can give you a shield. And I was like, oh, man, this is really useful. And then you get, like, these auto-bind attacks where you can pin down enemies, and multiple Legions can do that, but it's always really useful. And so it's fun being like, I probably wouldn't use this as much, but because I've invested in this way, I feel really strong and can rely on them. And so it's this good mix where if you like a certain style, you can invest in it and make it better. If you want to play a certain way, you can do that. Like playing as the Blaster, if you keep upgrading it, it's really good because you have the safety of distance at your side. But there's also plenty of reason to experiment. And as they're introducing the Legions to you, you do kind of get familiar with them. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds. So it's really well thought out in that way. But on top of that, it's not just battles, Brad. There's a lot of like environmental puzzle solving in there as well, where you'll have to use different Legions for different things. Like there will be these locks, and you have this Sword Legion. You have to go Metal Gear Rising style to like slow down. You don't have to slow down time, but you can aim your slice and cut up the locks.
Is it like the same thing, like the line turning?
Right. So there'll be like these things that you need to cut, and it's like, okay, I need to line it up in a certain direction to do that. You can ride on the Beast Legion, and so like these disappearing floors, you can run by them really quickly.
Cool.
You have the Arrow Legion where you can aim, and it's like, I couldn't hit that any other way, but because I have this long distance guy, I can shoot it. And then there's just general platforming, so you can send your Legions out, and then you don't jump yourself, but you send them over, and then they like pull you
that's funny.
to where you need to be, which is really, really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's like this chain jump thing that you do, which is fantastic. And it's a good split between these things where you'll do fights or you'll investigate a case, and it's like, I need to figure out how this is coming together. And so you'll get these keywords, and then you'll answer these questions. It'll be like, okay, what information do I have that lines up with this question? And then you'll have regular fights, and then you'll have these puzzle-solving things. But things start to break down a little bit. And before I go into that, I want to talk about how much I appreciate the police station. The song that plays is just really, really chill. And then you have this kind of mascot dog, Lappy, who is just incredibly adorable. I think really hard to hate, who kind of is your guide and goes through it and offers some humor. But there are some things that kind of prevent me from being like, Astral Chain, I love it, go play it like right now. Like, it's a great game, but it has some pretty severe things holding it back, I would say. And that is, you have all of this optional stuff that you can do, and I appreciate that it's not just combat all the time, but there's so many of them, and there's really just nothing to them. It's kind of novel at first, being like, oh, I have to chase after this guy and wrap him up, or I have to do this random errand for this person. But there's so many of them that, like, you reach a point where you're like, I just kind of want to get on with it. And you can, but you just are like, I wish these cases were giving me a little bit more. I wish there was some more humor here. I wish there was some more something or more insight into the world. They just feel really flat, I guess is the way.
How do they handle, like, turning in a quest? Do they, like, automatically check off, or you have to like go out, do the thing, come back, say that you've turned it in?
There are times where you'll just do something, and then there are times where it's like, oh, hey, go do this thing and then come talk to me.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they're all auto turn in. I did a lot of them, and so it's all kind of blurring together.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. Is it's like, man, I did a lot of these things, and like, there aren't a ton that are really sticking out as like great. Early on, there are like these kids who are, they want you to play this guessing game, and you have kind of this Arkham Asylum detective vision that you can turn on, and they're like, hey, guess our ages, and you can actually use your detective vision to cheat and see what all their ages are. And so
that's so weird.
Yeah.
How does that even make sense?
Yeah. They all look the same, but they're trying to figure out like, oh, which one is the oldest? Blah blah blah. That kind of thing. But yeah, and so I would be okay with these side quests kind of feeling flat if the broader story felt better or more substantial. But Brad, it's the kind of game where like, I bet this guy's gonna be evil, and then he super is. And you're like, it's fine to see things coming. I think things
Sure.
can be predictable or follow a story that you feel like you've heard before if they're written well enough. If the dialogue is sharp and you're like, oh, damn, that was said in a really interesting way, or this character has this charm to them. And there's certainly charm to be found in Astral Chain, but it feels like the people sometimes it relies on the most have the least amount of charisma. And so Astral Chain kind of gets away with it because when it does do the fighting or the spectacle or the boss fights, they're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
There are fights where it's like, why isn't this the final boss? There's one fight in particular that I'm thinking of where I'm like, why isn't the final boss? Like, it has multiple parts to it and it's just so big and giant where it has that kind of platinum spectacle that I think is absolutely fantastic. But overall, as far as the story goes, I didn't feel an emotional investment, and that's okay. I don't need an action game.
Of course.
I think about like Ninja Gaiden, for example. I don't have an investment in the story,
Right.
but I feel like it spends so little time with its story, and it's just action,
It just gets
action,
to the good
action,
stuff,
action.
yeah.
Whereas Astral Chain, I think maybe a better way to articulate my feelings is it's not action, action, action. It's like, okay, sit around, wait for people to talk, go do these chores, go find a way to do this thing, listen to people talk. Okay, now you get a fight. And so it just doesn't have the snappiness to make you ignore the story. And because it's more open-ended, I feel like it's relying on that stuff a little bit better, and it's just not there to back it up, which is exactly what I said in my review. But the other thing, something I didn't say in my review that is a huge bummer, is there's this place called the Astral Plane, where a lot of bad stuff is coming from. You spend a lot of time there, and it's just really dark and red and black, and everything kind of looks the same.
Oh man!
And having that shift, I think, from kind of this futuristic city to kind of this more abstract astral plane world is okay at first, but when you spend so much time there and everything looks the same, that is a problem.
Absolutely.
And that repetition is not great. And so, you know, what you were saying about Gears 5, where it was so awesome getting to see all these different places and having it freshen up, that doesn't have quite the same effect in Astral Chain, which is a bit of a problem. But man, like...
But it's fun.
Yeah,
so
that's
much fun
the thing is
playing
I can go on and on and on about all these little things that I don't like, but when you are playing it, the combat itself is spectacular. The boss fights are spectacular. A lot of the big tenets, a lot of the reasons you do come to an action game are there, and so it ends up being pretty great overall. It's just I wish those things were
tighter.
Were better for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. You said you guys are both interested in it. You're gonna try to
Well, it's really interesting to see, you know, just perusing the comments on your review because the people are all over the place. And I feel like almost like you've weighed the good and the bad, and you've kind of come to the center point because other people are like, "What? This game isn't that good," and other people are like, "This game's way better." It's like
right.
Everyone is like way out there.
Reviews.
Right. Yeah. It's always interesting because we were talking about the low expectations, right? And then the first time I played God of War Ascension being like, and then the second time being like, yeah, you know, all reviews are subjective, and I am a fan of Platinum games, right? Like, I hold them in pretty high regard. This isn't my first rodeo with Platinum games, and so I do think probably that expectation has made me very critical of it as well. It's hard for me to sweep some things under the rug when it's like, I know this can be better. I know you've done these certain things better before, and so I'm sure that's going against it as well. But yeah, I did see some comments on my review, and it is funny seeing those polarizations. And that happens on the internet so much, or in YouTube comments so much, where somebody will say some damning thing, and then another person will say the exact opposite, sometimes right on top of each other. And that's always pretty comical to see. But do you know what's not comical? What's dead set serious? You know it was coming.
Oh, I know it's coming.
You know it was coming. That's the HOTTAKE!
Oh, God.
There's a game that it's an upcoming game, and it's been on my mind a lot recently. Do you know what that game is?
Doom.
Death Stranding.
Well, yes.
Oh, both.
Fair. Both have been on my mind. But I have more questions about Death Stranding.
Sure.
So I've kind of gone through an emotional journey with Death Stranding, and I have always been excited and interested in Death Stranding. I'm always going to be excited and interested in a Kojima game, but it wasn't really like clicking for me to where I had a, oh my God, I'm through the roof excited for this. I can't wait.
Not like you did when MGS5 was like coming.
Right.
We knew it was coming.
Right.
Yeah.
I got that way with MGS5. I've gotten that way more with Death Stranding. I haven't watched the 50-minute gameplay stuff. I haven't watched the briefing trailer yet. I'll probably watch the briefing trailer. Probably won't watch the 50-minute gameplay thing. But before TGS, before this stuff, I watched all the trailers and I did some research and I'm like, okay, I finally think I understand what this game is going for. I think I understand the story that's trying to tell, and I think that could be really interesting if done well. And so that whole process of trying to put the puzzle together has made me more excited, but I have a concern with Death Stranding.
Sure.
And I want to get your thoughts on it. Today, I was thinking about Death Stranding and I was just like, at some point, I'm just going to see Jeff Keighley's face.
Yeah, sure.
And it's going to be not Jeff Keighley's voice, and he's just going to be in the game. In this world that seems very creative, right? Very surreal, very wild, very different than... I think the reason people are struggling with it is because it's so out there, because it's so different. I'm excited by that. I love going to weird and strange places.
Yeah, me too.
Is seeing Jeff Keighley's face immediately going to pull me out of it and make this world feel more artificial? Is it going to hurt me being able to immerse in this world? Is it a problem?
Do you feel that way about Guillermo or Mads or anyone else?
So Guillermo is an interesting one, but my thing with the actors is why it doesn't bother me as much is because they're actors, right? Like they're so skilled at blending in and being different people that I think maybe you get over that hump a little bit more quickly. And I understand that, like, Jeff Keighley is not doing the voice, that it is an actor, but I think I said that weird. An actor. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, I think there are two things with Death Stranding. I do think actors and their skill can alleviate that. But at the same time, Death Stranding is just so crazy with the famous, recognizable people that it's throwing in there. And then you have things like the Jeff Keighley thing. And then there are all these other people that I don't know who I'm going to see in Death Stranding.
Right.
You might be in Death Stranding, for all I know.
Definitely not.
That may be true. That may not be true. I guess I'll find out. But what I'm trying to say is, like, there's just so much going on, so many familiar faces. Is it going to be a problem?
Yeah, to me, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem. I think again, you know, it's kind of funny because video games do have this weird way of avoiding that subject more, but I think there are times when people pick up on, like, voice actors, and, like, when they first hear, like, Nolan North, like, that throws them off. It's like, oh, there's Nolan North again. You know, it takes you actually, like, playing and getting to know the new character before, like, you actually accept them. So maybe the thing that could maybe throw you off is that Keighley is just a random NPC, and we're not used to NPCs being anything. They're just like, here's some dumb model that looks like half as good as everybody else.
I think that is exactly... I'm so glad that you touched on this, because I think that is why I'm focusing on the Jeff Keighley thing so much, where it's not... It doesn't seem like he's going to be any sort of major character, but it's just, I'm turning in this stuff, and then I see him, and it's like, oh yeah, that's Jeff Keighley, and you don't have that time to kind of get over it. And so it's just kind of this thing that pops up. That seems really jarring to me. And I don't think it is fair to say that this is going to be a problem. I don't know it's going to be a problem, but I think it is an interesting thing to bring up, because I think actors being in games, and as we model their faces better and better, I think this is going to be a more common occurrence as well. And I just don't know if it's going to be an uncanny valley situation or if it's all worrying for nothing. Brad, do you think it's jarring seeing Jeff Keighley in Death Stranding?
Sure. I think it could be jarring.
Yeah.
To me, it's just like, I kind of embrace it with Kojima just because it's insane, and I kind of love that about Kojima. But like Keighley is someone in the game. It depends how much he's in the game and how intrusive it feels. If it'll bug me,
I kind of feel like we've seen it.
that
I kind of think that
Yeah, maybe.
that's the whole thing.
like it could be like a aha moment, kind of something like that. I don't know. Maybe if there's someone else in it, maybe it'd bug me more. Like if Adam Sandler was in this game a lot, just as a character, I would just I could never accept it as just a character. It'd just always be Adam Sandler to me. And like, that's my own problem, but that's just how it would be. But
Brad, I really hope Adam Sandler's in the game.
that'd be
just
hilarious.
to see your face.
I'd just be like, what? I wouldn't even be like mad.
No.
I would just be like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, Kojima feels like such a fan of movies. He's just like trying to blend them together, and I feel like he loves just having real people as like characters now in his games. And he's like really good friends with Jeff. Looks like, at least on the internet. But yeah, it just depends if it's like super intrusive to me. If he's just some little dumb hologram.
Right.
And that's the other thing too. Like, how many people are holograms? Like that to me is almost a weirder bit. It's like, why is he not actually there? Why
Maybe
are
he's
we
like
delivering something?
Maybe
and
he's like a
watching-
Cortana thing, like some AI thing.
Well, maybe wouldn't it make sense if he is, if the BTs, if those monsters can get you out in the world, he's probably somewhere safe.
Yeah,
and so
maybe.
he's just projecting himself.
Yeah.
But then, it just begs the question: like, how many hologram people do we interact with in this game?
Right. I want to talk about the relationship between Jeff Keighley and Kojima.
Okay.
Because it has been interesting, right, seeing their love unfold on stage, where it's been really intense, and it's easy to make fun of, I think, but I do think that Jeff Keighley just has a genuine passion for Kojima as a creator, and I respect that, I really do, but it is a little bit weird where it's like, hey, thank you for having this intense passion, we both work in the industry, and now you're in my game. Like, you were talking about, you appreciate Kojima's craziness. Putting your friends and famous people in the game doesn't seem crazy to me. It just seems like excessive, maybe. And that could be wrong. That could be wrong. Maybe these actors will serve this fantastic point in the game. But it is interesting seeing the blitzkrieg of famous people and indulgent, maybe a little bit indulgent of just like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
Versus,
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just like he's treating it like a movie almost. This game, just like with the cast
and obviously
of
has
characters.
a
like
huge
that-
affinity for movies.
Yeah, like to me, it makes sense.
Yeah,
So it doesn't
yeah.
really
I kind
bother
of wonder,
me.
like
that
in a
sense.
way, it's essentially like the Stan Lee moment, right? It's like I'm sure that Kojima himself is one of these characters in there somewhere.
Sure, yeah. He was in what was he in Ground Zeroes, right? Kojima?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's like, I don't know. It's just crazy Kojima, man. He just like loves movies. He loves these actors. He wants them to be part of his game.
So let's talk about Metal Gear Solid 5 because there's a lot going on there, obviously, with how that game was made and all of the drama that came out of it. But thinking about kind of the lead up to Metal Gear Solid 5, just seeing the flaming whale and
Yeah.
the man with bandages on his face being strutted around, like all of that stuff. It seemed like peak Kojima craziness, and I think in Metal Gear Solid 5, what was frustrating is a lot of that craziness didn't feel like it went to anywhere interesting. People did not really regret their words and deeds, right, despite the claim. And so you expected this wild and crazy ride. And I do think there are some ideas in Metal Gear Solid 5 that I appreciate. But I think overall, people feeling underwhelmed makes a lot of sense. Is that a worry with you in Death Stranding?
So here's the thing is, to me, MGS5 was not a finished game. It just wasn't done.
Right.
To me,
Yeah.
I get the impression that this will be a finished game. Will it end good? Will the story be good? I have no idea, but I just feel like it'll be a complete game.
Do you think we talked about Kojima putting in all of these people, and I appreciate you saying that it'll be a complete game, that'll be his vision. Do you think Kojima is reaching a point where his own fame as a game designer is having an impact on how the game is being created or being perceived? Like,
His fame?
Just, I feel like individual game developers don't get not a lot of them get the kind of recognition that Kojima gets.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
even somebody like a Yoko Taro who, or a Swery, right? Like,
but I mean, I think this is. I mean,
I just feel like
he's cultivated this from not quite the beginning, but pretty close.
he's been doing this a long time, and
since the PlayStation,
and like
you know,
yeah, Yoko Taro, he's done like Dragon's Dogma, or no, not Dragon's Dogma, Drakengard games and stuff like that. Nier Automata, I felt was like the real, like, this guy is a star developer. And
well, it's just
but even so, he tries to hide his face and create that persona.
Yeah, his whole persona. But I'm saying Kojima has been like held at such a high regard for such a long time.
Right.
And he's done so much. And like he was in this weird situation where Konami just kind of collapsed as game developers, and he went independent on his own pretty much. So like, this is his company. This is his thing. He's working with people. He's doing what he wants now. I'm sure he has like some sort of corporate overlords. I'm sure Sony's involved in some way or something like that. But it feels like he's just kind of doing much more what he wants right now. And I think he has the right to at this point.
I guess reaching that size, though, where you're saying it's been such a long time, and he has a right to do this, and I agree with all that stuff. But I'm saying with the amount of tension focused on Kojima, do you think that how much of an impact do you think that colors how people evaluate something like Death Stranding, right? Like, I think it is easy to see something even slightly. The point I'm trying to make is when you cultivate the kind of persona that Kojima has.
Yeah.
If you see even something slightly weird, it's just people go, oh, that's Kojima being crazy, right? They're not really thinking about the thing. They're just like, oh, that's just Kojima being weird, or this doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like what you see with Kingdom Hearts, right? Where the reputation of it being so convoluted has become its own discussion point, right? Where people are just quick to jump to that thing because it's happened over a period of time. And it's true, it is convoluted, but I guess, like, will people take Death Stranding at face value?
I don't know. I think it'll get a lot of flack. I think it'll go both ways. It'll get a lot of praise because it is Kojima, but I think a lot of people will play it and be like, what's the big deal about this kind of thing like that?
Sure.
I feel like when you're a person like Kojima, you get the good and the bad in that situation. You have so much to live up to, but so many people love what you do. So it could be great, or this game could be a disaster. I have no idea what this game's going to be.
So taking what Brad said, Blood, and you have these two possible situations for this game, I actually kind of agree. I don't think there will be a middle ground. I think this game will either be beloved.
I feel like there will be a middle ground, but of course the most outspoken people will be the high and the low and the low.
Sure.
Because like a lot of like I like this thing, or it's good, or just kind of
drowned
or
out
they
by
get
the loudness.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to Kojima being such a huge film fan that he takes the term director in a way that most people in the gaming industry don't really. You know, like, I think he takes it, and he takes that attitude and that vision in the same way
As a movie director?
as a Kubrick or Spielberg. Is like, you know, like, there is going to be like a certain signature to what he's going to put on screen and put in front of you that you know is going to stand apart from anybody else. And that's again, like, when I go back to, like, you know, him being cultivating that this whole time, him putting a Hideo Kojima game and insisting on that for
credits
decades.
Every mission in Metal Gear Solid 5.
I forgot about that.
I think that's a really good point, Blood, but I think the way that kind of inspiration happened, like him putting his own touch on things, I think it's always at its most striking when it comes through the game itself, right? I think about Psycho Mantis reading your memory cards, or the end.
And
boss
man, I
fight.
tell you what, as weird as this game is, I hope that there's that kind of thing.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. And I really have no reason to believe that it's not going to be there. I want to get out and say that. If you look at how well Metal Gear Solid 5 plays and you look at PT, I think there's plenty of reason to believe that there will be interesting game moments in Death Stranding.
And I really want, like him trying to say this is a new genre. Like, I don't see how right now. Like, this seems like an open world adventure game with some kind of dimensional twist. But, like, I'm not sure at this point what separates this game from, say, Control or Days Gone,
Right.
or something like that. But I'm, like, open to the idea of, like, okay, when we get our hands on this, like, what is it? What is going to be the thing that makes him,
Say this.
makes him say this? Yeah.
Do you think there's any concern that the what is this never gets fully answered and that
For
what
sure.
you're doing is not super satisfying?
I think those are two different things. I think the game could be completely satisfying and just be
You're just
a
like,
normal
what?
game. It's just a normal game with a weird story, or it could be something that just like blows your mind. But it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like if it's doesn't blow my mind in some weird offshoot way, the game could still be satisfying as a game. It just doesn't hit like, oh, okay, this is just
Doesn't have that moment.
this is just Days Gone with some crazy babies running around attached to you and peeing on mushrooms.
Do you think Kojima is anywhere in his mind thinking of a Death Stranding 2?
The thing I'm really interested in is he's been so locked into Metal Gear for so long. And I'm curious whether the next thing will just be out there, like just completely different direction,
Right.
Like if he does like a Reservoir Dogs kind of thing, where just there's no supernatural element to whatever. It's just,
Yeah,
some
makes a
gang
racing game.
story. Yeah.
I think I would really like that
Yeah.
a lot. Because thinking about the different Metal Gear games, there's this restlessness to Kojima that I really admire. Where like even thinking about how weird something like Peace Walker is, or all of the ideas in all of the Metal Gear games, like the like PMC ads that they would do in Metal Gear Solid 4 and how
Yes.
goddamn weird that stuff was. I feel like he has to do that. I feel like he has all these ideas, but I think the thing that about Metal Gear Solid is it kind of just became like he had all these ideas, but he also had to deal with this massive amount of lore and
connect it,
continuity
yeah.
and characters, and it felt like that was always a knot that had to be unraveled. And I guess I think what could be even better is if he doesn't get tied down like that, where he is allowed to have kind of that relentless creativity. But I think sometimes lore can be a prison, Like, people get really attached to it, and that is fantastic. But sometimes I think it's more powerful to just tell a singular story and then move on and tell another powerful singular story.
Yeah, right now he has a blank canvas.
Right.
When before he kind of had like a painting that was already kind of done, or there's some stuff already on. Like he has a storyline, you have to connect these kind of things.
Right.
Now he can do whatever the hell he wants. Pretty much. This is what this game is. Him doing whatever he wants. And it sure as hell looks like it right now. It's like, what the hell's going on? We haven't seen the demo thing, so who knows? But to me, he's just going nuts, and I'm into him just doing whatever he wants to do at this moment.
Blood, are you looking forward to Death Stranding?
Yeah. But for better or worse, I'm
For better or
definitely
worse.
looking forward to it.
Yeah. I am really looking forward to it, and I'm almost, Brad, my own reservations are actually making me a little bit disappointed in some ways. And I think it's good to have those reservations, and I think it's good to be skeptical. But, man, if you really think about it, a lot of this industry is just taking a lot of similar ideas or sequelizing things forever or remaking and remastering stuff. And I like all of it. I really do. I really, really do. And I guess it disappoints me to have these reservations about this big new thing, but at the same time, seeing something like Jeff Keighley in the game is like where those reservations are coming from. It's
Sure.
like, why are you doing this? What purpose does this serve? Does this really need to be here? Is this just scratching somebody's back, or like, are you making?
I mean, some things I'm like fine with not having like a specific meaning why it is here. To me, it's just felt like he just wanted to do it, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like there's definitely creators out there where I am way okay with them doing whatever the hell they want, and that's like Fumino Ueda, Hidetaka Miyazaki, and like Kojima. I'm just like super okay with these guys doing whatever the heck they want.
Right.
Because I just want to see what they're going to come up with.
Right. Okay. Are we ready to move on to emails?
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging my
Of course, man.
Death Stranding.
And I think a lot of people are in the
craziness.
same boat as you, Ben.
Yeah, it's one of those conversations, Brad, where you never know how it's going to go.
Nope.
Where this is something I could look back on in 6 months and be like, you couldn't be more wrong in one way or another. Where it's like it's a train wreck and you should have seen it coming, or it blew your mind and
Yeah.
you never should have doubted it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a conversation where I think it's going to be easy to feel foolish. But we'll see. Our first email is actually a game. I thought this was a really clever and creative game. This is Animal Crossing character or IKEA product.
Oh, God.
This is a name game of the sort. We won't keep score for this since we're in the emails section. You're all probably all familiar with, but me being Swedish, I had to go and put a twist on it. Following is a list of names, and you have to guess which one is either the title of an NPC from Animal Crossing or the name of an IKEA product. I made sure it's all available in the U.S. catalog and that there are no name overlaps between the two. It's either one or the other. Best wishes from Sam. Thank you for the fun game.
Thanks, Sam.
Is Frigga an Animal Crossing character or an IKEA product?
Oh, God, dude.
Animal Crossing.
I've played like one Animal Crossing furniture.
Blood is right. Animal
What
Crossing. Did
what
you know
creature?
Frigga?
It's a penguin, right?
I don't know.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm bad with names.
Okay, it's an Animal Crossing character, though. Frigga.
Folan.
Folan? Furniture.
Furniture?
Correct. You're both
Okay.
right.
They're all furniture to me, baby.
Sven.
Oh, Sven is
Yeah, it's
definitely a character.
character.
Yeah.
Yep. Kyle.
Character? I know it's a pretty plain name, but
That's a really plain name.
Like,
That
what
makes
is-
me think
what are they gonna
furniture
make
for
it
some
name?
Are
weird
you
reason.
calling Kyle plain?
yes.
Kyle's an Animal Crossing character.
Okay.
Bernard.
Animal Crossing character? Sounds like a cool
It's
dog.
yeah. It's
Bernhard.
Bernhard.
It's BERNHARD.
In that
Bernhard.
case,
that
furniture.
H actually makes me think furniture for
It's
some
furniture.
reason.
It's furniture. Yeah. Pug.
Character?
Pug.
Wait, Pug's two. That's furniture, dude.
Furniture it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dappa.
Furniture.
That
Dappa.
sounds like an IKEA furniture for sure.
Frita. Oh, it was.
Okay.
It was IKEA furniture.
Frita?
Frita.
Character.
Yes.
Character, yeah.
Character. I think we did all of them. Yep. So Fullen was. He's included links here. Fullen was IKEA furniture. Fullen sink cabinet white is in the URL.
He's got the links, dude.
Pug is a Pug wall clock stainless steel. Bernhard is a chair chrome plated cavat white.
Of course.
Dappa is a bathtub matte light gray. Sven Animal Crossing, Frigga Animal Crossing, Kyle Animal Crossing, and Frita Animal
What is
Crossing.
Kyle? What kind of animal?
Yeah, that's
is
the thing is you should include the animals. I feel like Sven is like a goat or something.
Sure.
He has links to him. He has links to the wiki. We can
Oh.
look at what Kyle. Yeah, okay.
What is he?
Kyle is a wolf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kyle the Wolf.
Kyle is a smug wolf villager who first appeared in the Animal Crossing series. His catchphrase, Alpha, could possibly be used by him to compliment the player, as Alpha culturally means leader.
All right. Well, they got one part right.
All right. Our next email. That was fun. Thank you
Yeah,
very much,
thank
Sam. Comes in from Alexander, who wants to know about performance expectations.
Oh boy.
The conversation about Control's performance on the base consoles got me thinking about the difference of expectations for a game performance on consoles and on PC. I believe the vast majority of PC players don't expect a 2019 game to run well on 2013 hardware, especially a game like Control, where visuals, destruction, and physics are so advanced they can be easily called a next-gen game. But in the console world, gamers expect that if they bought a console at launch, that should be enough for the entire generation, even if upgraded consoles are released later. I understand where such expectations come from. It was always like this, and when Pro and X were announced, Sony and Microsoft promised that base models still work with every game, but at the same time, I understand developers who don't want to be held back by limitations of the 6-year-old hardware when they can realize their creative vision with the most recent versions. I'm sure this isn't the last time we're seeing this. Do you think Sony and Microsoft can do something about this situation when they announce next-gen consoles? Can they say that new Pro and new X will be released eventually, and there will be some games that need them to properly work? Should they?
Whoa, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So as far as game running on your console, I think it changed completely now that there's like 2 iterations now. I feel like this is a trend that's going to continue forever now with consoles because it works and people do want to change things. It just depends how much, to me, how intrusive these performance issues are.
Right.
If it's like a real drag where it's noticeable and all the time, I would be kind of upset because the developers should know this. Like when they're developing the game and they see this happening on the console, I mean, they have to take that in consideration.
Right. I think it all comes down to communication.
Yes.
And what you say, I think if you're like, hey, we're going to support this and you can play everything on this, then I think it means it has to be playable. Right? It has to operate at a frame rate that is playable. It has to not constantly crash and not have severe technical limitations. It has to be reasonably playable. And I realize that that's vague, but I think the sentiment applies where if that is what you're saying, that's what you have to follow through on. If it is like, hey, we want to make this game, it can only play on this, I think that's understandable, and I'm sympathetic to that, but you have to get out and say that. You can't just be like, we're doing that, and then release it on base consoles and it doesn't
And
run
just
well at
be
all.
like, yeah.
But of course, the other thing I think to keep in mind, right, is making video games is like insanely
Really hard.
difficult.
Yeah, so crazy.
And I do think some sympathy is ordered. That sympathy is not the same thing as giving people a pass. Those
Correct.
are 2 different things. And so if there are problems, but they fix them quickly, I think that is reasonable as well.
Sure.
Not everything is going to go.
Yeah, it
perfect
does
all the
sound
time.
like the patch hasn't 100% fixed things, but it's improved them. So
Right. And
I haven't jumped back into the game to see since then.
Yeah. And I think it just gets worse at the end of a generation because now these consoles are so old.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to affect a lot of the games.
Right. It's a situation that I do feel torn on, where you're right, Brad, at the end of a generation, I do expect that, but at the same time, like, this is what Sony and Microsoft said.
Yeah.
I get it. I get people being frustrated. I think that's valid, but I don't know. I think developers trying to do the best that they can and being responsive is sometimes the best you can hope for.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not a satisfying answer, but
I mean, it's a really hard question to answer.
right, because we had this
There's
question.
so many factors into it.
We had this question come up in the Easy Allies podcast, and I think they shouldn't get a pass, and I do think user reviews do reflect that. It's hard with professional reviews when a lot of them only do, including us, only do one platform because there are a lot of things that you miss. But if that is something that you experience, I do think it is something that you should say in the review, like, hey, this is not running well. You should ding them for that. But I think that is different than, like, screaming at people. I don't think it should get to,
Of course.
to that
Oh, yeah.
point. But
Yeah, I mean, and to what people will call unplayable, it's sometimes can feel like an exaggeration. Like I definitely had really bad frame rate issues when I was playing through Control, but I was still able to get through the game. There's just some of that stuff. It's
were you playing on base
base PS4.
base PS4? Okay.
So the thing that gets me, the weirdest thing about the performance issues and control, and I've heard this even happens on some of the other, like, the higher end machines, is this weird thing where, like, the game has a hard time unpausing.
Yeah, that happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Why?
Every time, yeah.
I don't understand why when I unpause, I have to wait for
3
like
seconds
Yeah.
or
3
so.
seconds
Yeah.
for the frame rate to catch
a
up.
big complaint
Yeah.
with control for sure.
Yeah.
So that's the weirdest one. But there are definitely some of the rooms where there's a lot going on with physics and stuff towards like the frame rate in this room is just never going to be good.
Yeah.
It's funny talking about expectations because I think that plays into this question as well, where I feel like there were games that were coming out that just were simply broken, that just did not work.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like last generation and maybe early on in this generation, those are things that happen more frequently. And so I've been seeing it less. I feel like game companies
Right.
have gotten better at tightening things up. And so I think, I don't know, I don't think it should be given a pass, but I think you have to kind of take a macro look at things where you're like, okay, how you can't.
Well, there's definitely like a way better approach to like multi-platform releases now than in the past. You know, like it is kind of just sort of taken for granted. Like it's going to come out on all of these platforms at the same time and usually the same quality. Whereas like, man, when I was reviewing games back in the GameCube PS2 days and
Right.
Xbox days, and like you got a drastically different game. They like took Splinter Cell and they just like chopped it up and made multiple rooms out of large areas, you know, like the original, basically the Xbox was the original game. And then they made a PS2 GameCube game that like had all kinds of weird crap missing. There's like, this beginning part of this level is just not going to work. Just chop it out, put them inside. You know, like stuff like that. Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit. The GameCube and the PS2 games have a lot of crazy differences and different features because there was just some point in the development of that game where they're just like, all right, take the code, ship it off to this other company, have them finish the game for GameCube while we continue working and developing the game on PS2 and add new features into the game that they never even got.
Oh man.
It's just,
Yeah, it's
it's
crazy.
craziness.
Blood, speaking about reviews, though, because this is one where I really feel torn, and I think that is coming across in the way that I talk about it. But there's a voice in the back of my head that is like, maybe, you know, because we have this Pro and X situation, like, is it worth it if a game is releasing on all these different platforms to at least take a look at every single platform? Is that even feasible?
I think
like it's already
that's the hard question is like, is it feasible? And like, it's such a case by case basis.
Yeah, it
and
may
it's
not
like-
be something noticeable right when you start the game. It may take a while.
Well, and then somebody's actually, I've seen a few people bring up that thing, the Skyrim situation,
Right.
to where like Skyrim performance issues didn't really start seeping in until you'd put like 60 or 90 hours or something into the game on PS3, and then the game just starts
Breaking.
falling apart like all over the place.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to kind of accept though, because we've talked about the Skyrim PS3 thing way back in the day, but I get it from an audience perspective when they're like, "Hey, I come to reviews for you guys to tell me, you know, what's good and what's bad about this game." And part of the bad is like, "Hey, is this game work?" And does that mean that we're failing at our job or that we're a different type of review?
I mean, to me, the main thing is that we're upfront about what we tried it out on. You know,
Right.
it's like
right at the beginning.
if we try, you know, like we put that, like we reviewed this on the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is what you can expect out of a PlayStation 4 Pro.
version,
You know, and because we are reviewing the whole game and like all of its different parts and things like that, whereas Digital Foundry,
yeah.
they're focused on just the way this game
Performance,
works
yeah.
and performs. Like they don't need to tell you about the story. They don't need to tell you about the multiplayer. They don't need to tell you about any of this other stuff. They're just going to dial in and figure out, like, okay, how does this work on every platform?
And they also have the technical know-how.
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
say
they
it
can
with-
actually
they-
test this stuff out
they
in a very scientific way.
Right,
Yeah.
they say it definitively and authoritatively, yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, even when I was going through, like, our initial conversations with Metacritic, and I was like, well, what about, like, games where, like, we've reviewed on multiple platforms, like, how come you're only picking and choosing one platform, and it's like, well, what is the bar, for what's good enough to consider that you've reviewed it on both platforms? Like, how much time, if you've just popped it in for 2 or 3 hours, is that really substantial to say that you reviewed it on that platform?
Right.
And there are some games, like, I don't know if you had this experience with Gears, but like with this Xbox crossplay thing, like with Forza Horizon 3 in particular, like, I couldn't have told you, like, which version I put more time in. It was like, one was convenient for me to get on the TV and play it on the Xbox. I played on the Xbox, and it was convenient for me to get on PC and play on PC. I was just bouncing back and forth between them so much.
But I'm sure that experience informed your review because it's nice to be able to do that.
And I did break that stuff down.
Right.
I did talk about, when I had that opportunity. But there's so few situations where that actually
comes up.
works. Or like with a PS4 Pro versus base, it's like you're literally like making that situation happen where like you have multiple PS4s hooked up to your system.
But it's not going to get any easier because not
Right.
only do we have these tiered systems, we're going to get into cross-generation soon, which has me worried. But also, when you talk about like the advent of streaming platforms, it's like, if you're reviewing a Stadia game, do you need to play it on all of the different ways that you can play Stadia? Like, do you need to play it on different devices? Do you need to play it on different phones to see how it works? What's the disparity? Is there any disparity between these things?
Right.
And so
Theoretically, there shouldn't be.
Right, because it is a different thing. But I'm saying that is adding a whole nother layer to it as well, because different people are going to have different types of connections. So do you need to, if you're playing a Stadia game, do you need to purposely play it on like the lowest recommended internet as well as the highest to see the difference between them?
Yeah.
Right? That's
Maybe,
going to be an interesting process to review. But I think Blood, you really nailed it. I'm glad you said that because I think that's true. I think as long as you're upfront with like, this is how we experienced it.
Right.
And as long as that's clear and the audience knows that, I think that still is valid. For sure.
Yeah, because somebody, like, even if, you're not going to go to Digital Foundry or the game wasn't interesting enough for them, somebody out there has reviewed,
the version
that you want to find out about.
Yeah.
Our last email comes in from Ricky. The subject is redemption for publishers. Hey, I was just curious on everyone's take on redemption for publishers and studios. We've certainly seen some great examples in the past. Others seem to have a much harder time and often for good reason. As for EA, they've got a long road. The example I keep thinking about is Activision after faithful remakes of Crash and Spyro by the fantastic Toys for Bob and Beanox. I was beyond surprised. Treyarch and Infinity Ward have been seemingly striving for higher quality and better games they can get excited about. Black Ops 4 is the most fun I've had playing COD, and now the Modern Warfare reboot looks like it's going to be going for the GOTY with its new engine focused on story and Naughty Dog writers. Over at Blizzard, I certainly expect the upcoming Diablo and Overwatch PC projects to come to light this BlizzCon and more. Once all of that is out and peachy, hypothetically tie that with a bow by way of another Activision published game like Sekiro. Wouldn't that be the story of some amazing movement in the right direction? I just feel like we're already on that path, reaping those rewards, artists thriving, and yet the online consensus still seems pretty in the negative as always. Is credit being given where credit is due, or am I getting my hopes up with just a few good signs?
Yeah, Activision's definitely always been a weird company because they just feel like they're so focused on the profits that they're just going to work their way towards whatever is going to be successful and then just run that thing all the way into the ground. When you look at like how they ran
Guitar Hero
and Tony Hawk and Spider-Man, and and it's weird because it's like Call of Duty is one of the few things where you like see like that actual like commitment to like investment and to like let's keep trying to make this different as possible, even within the formula. Whereas a lot of those other things, they're just they just felt like they were coasting. Even the past Crash and Spyro games.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, okay, like we've
who
got
cares?
Elijah Wood,
Yeah, who
interesting,
cares?
but yeah, it's like, but it is, where they're at now. Like they've done some great projects, but it's strange how a company that's that successful doesn't really have that big of a lineup or a portfolio. It's like you've got the Crash and Spyro and Call of Duty and Sekiro, and then Blizzard doing their thing. But Activision doesn't seem to have a whole lot going on other than like these really like
But the things that
almost
they do are
under
big.
under the table
Yeah.
like quick license things like the stuff that they've done with Platinum.
Oh right, like Ninja Turtles, right?
Well, and
Core.
then you have waves. Like Skylanders was a wave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they like a lot of this stuff's like to me is like short term, like profit. They'll just run in the ground until it makes enough money, then it's over.
As far as like redemption arcs for publishers, though, we're all guilty of this, but I think the world just needs more granularity, right? Like it's not just like Activision is bad. Like Activision has had their name associated with things that I've greatly enjoyed, but they've done a lot of questionable things. And people have done things. People have been mad at things that they've done for justified reasons. Both of those things are true to me, and so it's not just like black and white.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like we
often
have to
it's
see
somewhere
what's
in the
happening.
middle.
Right. Whereas, like, I also don't think it's just this. It's fair to say everything EA does ever is bad. Like, there are things that EA has done that I do enjoy, or I think have good aspects to them. And I just think our overall discourse would be better if we just be a little bit more willing to admit that, right? Like, I don't know. And so redemption arcs is strange to me because, like, even last episode, I felt like we criticized Blizzard a lot, but it's not like Blizzard isn't doing anything or there isn't any quality coming out of that.
I mean, Diablo 3, there's your redemption arc. But yeah.
I mean, 4?
Diablo 4?
Well, no, I was thinking it's 3 just from when it came out and the perception that people had compared to or eventually.
Oh, where it ended up, yeah.
Right. And think about how much that changed. And I think that I think the reason why I'm being so cautious on this speaks to Diablo 3 specifically, where we're in a time now where games can have that transformation, often do have this that transformation.
No Man's Sky.
We're seeing that over and over and over and over again. No Man's Sky is a good example. Final Fantasy XIV is a good example. Diablo 3 is a good example, where games can change and become completely different than what they initially set out as. And so redemption is always possible because they have the power to do that.
Yeah, if they believe in it.
However, on a more cynical note, I think a good advice for this industry is be optimistic for individual games, be skeptical of corporations. Like,
Sure, yeah.
the games that Activision is associated with, I have different feelings on, sometimes very positive feelings, but like at the end of the day, at the absolute top level, I know all they care about is making money.
Of course, yeah.
Corporations run the world, and it is right to be cynical of that motivation. It's just sometimes through that greed, good things happen. And it's kind of a sad way to look at things, but I think it's true, right? Like, I don't think Activision would associate itself with Sekiro if they didn't think they could make money on it.
Right.
Of course,
There's,
yeah.
there's no sum.
They're not going to invest in something
Right.
just for charity.
I don't think there's this grand altruistic thing coming from that association, but that game is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, as a creative work, I think that game has a lot of value to it. But their involvement, however it helped the game, came down to money.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to do it for Frame Trap.
Woo.
We talked about a lot of games.
Woo. Yeah.
Talked about a lot of things. Death Stranding.
Death Stranding, man.
Death Stranding is looming ever closer. We still have a lot more to play. Thank you so much to Daniel Bloodworth at the end there and Bradley Ellis in the middle. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please send an email, have us chew on things. AskEasyAllies@gmail.com is the email address. AskEasyAllies@gmail.com is the email address. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time.